Rowdies. Took some time to talk to John yesterday, so you will hear from Conner. We'll look ahead to the weekend in the USL Championship. We'll also look ahead to the evening that we have at Pontoon Brewing in Sandy Springs. We will be live tonight starting at 6 o'clock. You can watch on Twitch if you can't join us. You will have an opportunity to win prizes if you are with us in person or if you are watching on Twitch. Both have the ability to win prizes. Both require some things. If you're going to be at the brewery, partake. Have fun. You'll be with us. You'll get tickets. You'll have a chance to win. It's all cool. If you are at home, take a picture. Share it with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. Show us what you're drinking. If you're drinking a pontoon beverage, then you'll get an extra chance to win a gift certificate tonight. That's at Pontoon Brewing tonight, 6 o'clock, Sandy Springs, GA. You can also watch on Twitch if you can't join us. Jarrett Smith has joined us this morning, and he is salty. I don't even exactly know why. Just salty in general, Jarrett Smith.
Well, no, I feel better because I fed my child in the car and at home, and in the car she left me a strip of bacon and some sliced mango that she didn't finish. So that helps.
Well, that's very kind. Maybe she knew you were salty.
It's very possible.
Little sweetness to counteract the salty this morning?
I have to build up my salt intake for Saturday evening, so yeah.
Why do you have to do that, Jarrett? Please explain to us.
For the salty takeaway, so that Nick and I
know, that's why I was asking.
The game and find out what happened Saturday night when Atlanta United host the Chicago Fire at Mercedes-Benz Stadium at 8 p.m.
Very nice. And John's got to try to balance y'all's saltiness out. Is that possible? He doesn't like salt, so I guess it is.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, they have to have enough salt for the group of us, so they have to make it up. They have to make up the difference. Since I am not a salt-based person.
You're not a salt-based person. Your body is not based on salt.
No, it is not based on salt. It's based on other things like caffeine and preservatives and things like that.
Okay.
It's more of a high fructose corn syrup consistency.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, John. That'll work. I don't understand, but it'll work. We've got a bunch of different things to get into today in hour number one. There is still more smoldering embers of the Super League that are out there and being discussed, and we'll get into it. There's some rumors about Toronto FC adding a very strong player from Santos in Brazil. Santos can be added to the list of clubs that are having financial difficulties, and that might be why Toronto gets potentially Jefferson Soteldo. Venezuelan winger, I think, would be a great addition to MLS. Not a player I want to see in the Eastern Conference, but yeah.
That's a pretty... Has his price dropped at all? Or
his price... No. His price was absurd to begin with. It wasn't accurate, and that's why he didn't get sold. There were some crazy valuations on him, and
I thought they were a bit extravagant, let's say, at the time. So.
Yes. Loquacious, maybe? Mm-hmm. Is that possible?
I mean, it was like $22 million or something.
Yeah. Yeah, 22. I mean, come on. No. Right now, we're talking about $6 million. Reportedly, Toronto has offered to Santos. This is coming out of Globo Esporte and A Tribuna, both outlets in Brazil. Santos owes Huachipato, the club that Soteldo came from. They owe them $4.8 million still. He was signed in 2019. It's 2021. Yeah, that's a problem. So the way this goes down, and it's complicated because Huachipato in Chile owns 50% of Soteldo's pass. They want $2 million for 25% of the rights, $4 million for the 50% of the rights owned by Santos. Toronto has to reach an agreement with both clubs, apparently, and that's according to the Waking the Red, the SB Nation outlet that covers Toronto FC. Huachipato wants more money for the player, probably because they haven't gotten anything for the player yet, and he hasn't been there since 2019. Over 100 games with Santos, no money to watch Pato. Welcome to soccer in South America. Welcome to the financial issues, yada, yada, yada. Can Toronto get this one over the line? They've got a designated player spot. If it's an extra $1 million or $2 million to take this up to an $8 million deal, Soteldo's worth that. I think when you're talking about under $10 million, I have no problem with getting Jefferson Soteldo for that. If I'm Ali Curtis in Toronto, he's worth it, and he's the kind of player they need because you've got a really good central midfield. You've got a couple different forward options. We know Josie and his hamstrings and those issues, but you've got Ayo Akinola. You don't really have game-changing wingers, and if you're able to set up a situation where you even decide, like, look, we're going to play Pozuelo on one wing, we're going to play Soteldo on the other, we're going to play our midfield trio of Bradley, Osorio, and Delgado, and then Altidore or Akinola up top, depending on who's healthy. That's one of the best front sixes in the league. No question about it for me. Soteldo can make Toronto a contender if they sign him. And I know the Toronto haters are not happy about this, but Soteldo would make Toronto an absolute contender if they're able to get him.
Absolute good piece of business if Toronto can do it. And we've seen from MLSE in the past that they are more than willing to invest in any of their properties to try to get them over the line. You know, for those who follow hockey, you know, and Mike and I go down our hockey conversations. This season, sensing an opening with the Maple Leafs, they made a lot of investments at the trade deadline to try to continue to get over the line and get the Stanley Cup that has evaded them for as long as it has. So this falls in line once again with MLSC's mindset about chasing after players, bringing them in, and getting these teams over the line. So, yeah, Jarrett, for me, this financially, MLSC is never afraid to do anything like this, and this would be another stage in that, bringing in a game changer like Soteldo.
I mean, as much as we talk about Atlanta and LA and Miami for the money they have spent, I feel like we don't talk nearly enough about how much money Toronto spends on guys. Mm-hmm. They kind of skirt around that part of the conversation, and they do spend a lot. I mean, they might not drop they're not dropping like the $15 million transfer, but they're paying a lot every year to guys. They carry a really high salary.
Yeah.
And you know, the results have shown that. You know, they've been at or near the top. Their bad year in 2018. Go look at that 2018 season for Toronto and the injuries they had. They still came within Michael Bradley kicking a field goal instead of a penalty to possibly winning a CONCACAF Champions League. The man was playing center back that year, not by choice because they didn't have anyone else. You know, Vanderveel was like the big signing and was basically an Acme rocket that blew up in their face. Otherwise, they just kind of keep going along here, and I don't want to be the one. I don't want to question Toronto, honestly, now without Greg Manny there. How does this look long term with Chris Armas? You know, the first game wasn't great, but this isn't like this move is not oh my God, we lost to Montreal, we have to go bring in an international winger right now to fix us. They've been working on this. They know what they're doing. But I also like this in the sense that they need to get younger. They're one of those teams to me that is they're still kind of in a prime, but they're kind of on the back end of the prime with some of these guys. And while they do have some young players, like I know Akinola might be gone. You still have Richie Larea, as much as we dunk on him for his ability to kick the turf instead of the ball.
His ability to fall down is very, very strong.
It's very good.
Indeed,
I'm impressed with
yes.
it. But they still do have some young guys. But this is part of, I think, that transition they need to make to getting younger. So it's a smart move for them on a couple levels in terms of just competing now, but also, you know, not slipping into that stage of we hung on to guys 1 year too late. There we are at the bottom of the table.
They've got young guys coming through, and they're going to get more time. I think what you can look at with this team is I thought they were a little bit in between, where the young guys weren't quite ready. The old guys were still going to take up the minutes, and it would almost be like a limbo sort of year. If they get Soteldo, they're going to be a problem in the East to add to other problems. Atlanta should be a problem in the East. Orlando is a problem in the East. Columbus is the biggest problem in the East. Philadelphia is right next to them as a big problem in the East. That's at the top. Nashville's right there too. I mean, and then you've got the surprising packages like a Cincinnati. I don't expect DC to continue it, but who knows? Maybe they do. New York City, I don't think will jump into that, but we've been surprised before. Red Bull should be a little bit back. But I don't know who wins the East at this point. Columbus has got the inside track, but if they have injuries like this continuing, then it's not going to be easy for them either. The margins are just so narrow. And that's what's exciting about it is we could go 5-6 teams in the East who have legitimate chances at winning the conference. Out West, it's roughly the same. So it's going to be a fun season, and these little moves, that's where it starts to change. Toronto, I think, elevates themselves in a big way if they get Soteldo. Now, they've still got business to do, but other teams still have the opportunity to make moves in this window, and then again in the summer window. One move here or there could really tilt the balance of power.
Yeah, I mean, this is, we knew that this was a log jam going in with a lot of teams that would be in the playoff picture and then those that could contend in the East. And, you know, you add this possible transaction to the mix. And, you know, we've talked about A's, your ranking system of A's, B's, A, B, and things like that. And this, I think, for me, you know, if Soteldo was to come to pass, I mean, this really puts Toronto right there in that focus for chasing after things in the East for me.
It's a good thing Jarrett Smith is hanging out with us because the New York Red Bulls have announced they have signed a young designated player, Polish youth international striker, Patryk Klimala from Celtic. Jarrett, thoughts?
Curious what he does. Came into Celtic with expectations. One of a number of players in the past few years that have come into Scotland, and everyone went, oh, he is not ready physically for this league because it's a physically abusive league. Spent some time in the pandemic getting bigger, getting stronger. And I haven't seen it confirmed, but it was insinuated in at least a few places that he was getting bigger and stronger, and also, I don't know, was grabbing some takeout a little too often for some people's taste, and got a little too big and might have lost some of that speed that he had, and overreached on that balance of like size and quickness. So I'm very curious what he does in Red Bull's system, though, because he's got talent for sure. Celtic's a hard place to judge talent right now because they're such a hot mess. But so I don't want to, like, it's the same thing with a young kid that just came over from Celtic. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Who was a U.S. youth international who came over to Red Bull. Same thing is, it's such a mess in Glasgow right now. You don't want to like paint a broad brush on any of these guys. I want to see what he does in the Red Bull system. I think it's a lower risk, high reward move, especially if you're using the U22. You're not taking up a regular DP slot for it. It's worth a shot.
Celtic paid how much for Klimala? Do you remember?
Around $3 million, I think. So they're getting. I think they're getting their investment back from Red Bulls, which Red Bulls must see something there to be like to do that. And Celtic was like packing the kids' bags. Right. Once they heard Red Bulls, it was like, oh yeah, well, we break even on this deal. Hell, we'll put you on the plane tonight, because it was looking very much like he was gonna wash out with Celtic, and that was going to be $3 million down the drain completely. The fact that they might come even close to breaking even, they're going to be doing cartwheels.
How are they feeling after yesterday, Jarrett, with a late, last kick of the game to get the point with Aberdeen?
Absolute last kick.
I didn't get to see it. I was getting ready for a number of different things, but a lot of praise for Aberdeen and the way they played. Celtic is still Celtic in 2021, right?
That game could have been 4-3. Both teams hit the post. Olsen Edward is broken right now, and I don't know if they just need to put him in Rice. He probably should have had 2 goals in that game. Lee Griffiths gets the last second header. Aberdeen could have had 4 goals in the first 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then Celtic could have had 4 goals over the next 40 minutes. It was very back and forth, but Aberdeen wasn't afraid. They came out. Same thing as last time we watched them. Is like they look like they're faster getting into transition, and to me they're playing with more urgency with the ball at their feet. The switches are much faster than they were when they're cycling the ball. But they played Celtic the way you have to, and I get Celtic is a hot mess, but you still have to play them this way when they have that much talent. Where you're sitting a bit. Stephen Glass talked after the game about they haven't had as much time to work on the attacking side of things as they would probably like, but they're still trying to work on that side of things, which is something that Aberdeen absolutely needs to work on because the attacking side of things has been the biggest problem. They get the goal off a set piece that Lewis Ferguson puts in. Ferguson probably could have had 2 or 3 in this game if their finishing is better. There's still improvement to be had there, but they went in and didn't play scared against Celtic and came the last play away from winning at home against Celtic since, God, it must have been 15 years at least. So it is, you look at it though, and I'll tell you right now, watching like John Kennedy's Celtic from the transition from Neil Lennon to Kennedy has made me cry in a bad way, whereas the transition from Derek McGuinness to Stephen Glass, it's clear that there is somebody in there who has brought a little bit of life to them. That's good.
We got to talk about
I would
other.
like to see what he does in the summer window.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves they're going to have to make. We got to talk about other games from yesterday too. Domer is yelling on the Twitch pitch about Cristiano Ronaldo being a pansy. Dude is in the middle of the wall and ducked, allowing a rocket of a goal for Parma. If you're worried about your pretty face, get out of the damn wall, Domer says. Wasn't he one of the players who jumped and turned in Juventus' other wall situation?
Yes, he was.
Aren't they going to learn?
Apparently not.
Andrea Pirlo. Seriously, dude? Like, don't put him in the wall. You should know by now. Juventus did win 3-1 over Parma. They did take care of that. Inter 1-1 with Spezia, but they are inching closer to winning the Serie A title. It'll be the first time in, is it 10 years that somebody other than Juve has won it?
Mm-hmm.
The 1-1 draw at Spezia took them 10 points clear at the top of the table. They'd fallen behind. They leveled it. Milan lost at home to Sassuolo 2-1. That pretty much rules out any miracle finish. The Juve win boosts their hopes of a top 4 finish. Let's look at the table in Italy now. And Inter with that 10-point lead at the top. Juve's in third, a point behind Milan. Atalanta's a point behind Juve. So second, third, fourth, 66 points, 65 points, 64 points. Napoli is on 60 points. They have a game in hand on Milan and Juve. Atalanta does as well. Lazio's on 58. They're not completely out of it yet. And you've got 6 or 7 games remaining, depending on the team. Lazio's actually got 8 games remaining. So they can make up some ground. I think Roma is too far back at 54. I mean, you're going to have all the continued fallout with Super League stuff. And it's like you want to untangle all of it, but you can't because it's just going to continue to get talked about. I mean, you've got allegedly Inter CEO Beppe Marotta will be stepping down from his role with the Italian Federation. People are calling for resignations. In Italy, they are kind of backing off of super punishments for these 3 teams. They don't want to exclude them from Serie A. I don't know if they're going to try to deduct points. Alexander Seferin with UEFA is talking about what punishments will be, says they're talking to their legal teams. You're getting into a situation as you start to look at how you get out of what's happened this week, where I really do have a concern that the the leagues and UEFA that were involved in this and that are angry are going to cut their nose off to spite their face because of the anger, because of wanting revenge. And they're going to end up doing damage to themselves more so than the teams they're trying to punish. I hope people have some common sense about this. And I hope some fans have some common sense about this. The gang of idiots who broke into the Manchester United training ground today. Hey, they were idiots in Marseille when they did it not long ago. The idiots in Schalke who were chasing players. Players were running from fans.
Yeah.
All I've heard this week is it's the fans' game, right? Well, then take some damn responsibility and don't be a gang of idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't get a voice at the table when you break into people's property. You can be mad at the Glazers all you want. I heard an argument, somebody trying to make a point like the Glazers have ruined Manchester United. Where are they in the table, by the way? How much money have they spent on players? Have they made some bad signings?
They're second, and actually kind of within not within stupid shouting distance, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, but this thing, like, have they made mistakes? Absolutely. Have they made some bad hires? Yeah, like every team in the world. It happens. What's the alternative? Nobody wants to talk about that stuff. And instead, you want to break in to where the manager and some of his staff have to talk people down after they've broken in and they're taking pictures like, ha, we're on the training pitch?
Yeah.
It's horrendous. Schalke gets relegated, and people want to attack players. Awful. Marseille, people broke in. They vandalized the training ground.
Set stuff on fire, yeah.
Millions of dollars of damage. Like, that's the flip side. And you can't ignore it. If it's going to be a game for the fans, and it is about the fans, and they own the game, as many people have said this week, well, you got to take some responsibility for this. This is not okay. It's not okay at all. And it's got to change. You cannot, in 2021, separate money and sport. It's impossible. If you can, then the sports existence you live, and there are people who do this, and more credit to them, they follow only non-league stuff where nobody's getting paid. Nobody. Because anytime you bring money into it, it turns into a business. And that's life. That's not right, wrong. That's just reality. If it's a semi-pro team, at some point it comes down to money. If you want to be better, you got to pay, Jimmy, who's your forward, who's earning, $50 a goal. You got to give him more money. I see that in the Latin leagues here. In Atlanta, I've seen it. We had guys who we wanted to play on an NPSL team, and they're like, no, because I can go to Birmingham and play in the Hispanic League and make $500 a game. I'm going there. Sorry. And we didn't have any money to pay them, so that's the deal you got to make. It happens at all levels. If you can completely divorce yourself from it, then you are following leagues and teams where there is no money involved. It is totally amateur, all of it. Money's always going to be there. Does it mean you can't have the emotional reactions and the romanticism that's in the game that we love? No, it doesn't. It is in the background, though. If you want your team to lift trophies, well, you're probably going to want them to spend money, right? It's the reality of it. Celtic fans, Jared, I'm sure they want them to spend money this summer to have a better roster on the field. Even if the financials are very bad and they don't have the money to spend, they're going to want them to spend money, right?
They are. They're in the phase right now. I think a lot of people are, at least speaking for some. I've seen it for myself. They're in the phase of, I want you to spend smart because you threw around a lot of money and nothing happened because they were in that phase about this time last year of, we got to spend money. We got to make sure we get 10 in a row. And they did, and they did it poorly. So now it's kind of transitioned to that. For me, what is that follow-up phase of, okay, we got to spend, but we need to be smarter about it this time. But yeah, last year about this time, you were in that, we got to spend. We got to spend.
I think the majority of your fan base, I think there are people who, yes, are like, we need to be smarter about it. And I think maybe the club is saying they need to be smarter about it.
I think that's a knock-on effect from, oh, yeah, we need to spend. What you're talking about is the step before this one that everyone gets into, and it gets into like this blind tunnel vision about it.
But I think most of the fan base is like that now. I'm not buying the fact that there's this large number who are like, spend smartly.
I think they've seen enough. The ones I've known and the ones I've talked to and the ones I follow and interact with are in that, and that might just be my circle.
Well, I put you in the smart side of the fan base, Jared. Sometimes I question it, of course, but in general, I know. I put you in the smart side of it because you're looking at the big picture. When you see enough bad deals in a row, 100%.
I mean, it's just kind of like you're a little gun shy, but at the same time, it's a little paradox of you're gun shy, but you're also ready to pull the trigger constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the thing that gets me with like Man U. It's like, oh, they made bad hires. Like, oh, you mean like every club that has ever had a like legendary manager, and the guys that follow the legendary manager don't live up to the expectations that were set by that?
There's plenty of things about the Glazers you can be angry about with decisions, but to say they ruined the club, no. Sir Alex Ferguson got old and retired.
Mm-hmm.
That's what changed at Manchester United, and they haven't found another Sir Alex. Ed Woodward needed to go a long time ago. He's made bad decisions over time. You needed to move on from that, but ultimately...
You might not find another Sir Alex.
No, of course not.
That's as long as everyone's at peace with the fact, like, you might not find another one, and that's okay, because that's such a unique thing to have. Not every club has a manager they name a damn stand after who like is just left the club. Like, the reason you named the stand after him is because he was exceptional. The reason he has a legacy there is because he was exceptional. Not everyone has that, and it's great you had it, but what follows, you don't go exceptional to exceptional to exceptional for the rest of your life as a club and as a fan. It just doesn't happen.
So Ron says there's not smart fans, I'm assuming, because he said smart fans, LOL.
Absolutely, I absolutely expect that.
Yeah. The word is short for fanatic.
It is, absolutely.
Lower the expectation, however. Ron, I'm not. Ron, let me make it sense. I'm not saying that the majority of fans are smart and are looking at this logically. I'm saying the opposite. But saying you're a fan does not give you license to break into a training ground and do damage to things like they did in Marseille, or I don't know if they threatened anybody at Manchester United, but even breaking in, it's illegal. I mean, there's just no other way around it.
Throwing
chasing
eggs
players,
and launching fireworks at Schalke players.
Yeah, chasing players. I mean, we saw it in River when River got relegated. The players had to get to the middle of the pitch and be surrounded by police shields and to try to get them off. Like, fan is short for fanatic, I understand, but it doesn't give you license to be out of control. And yeah, you
who almost got relegated last year in Argentina?
What's that?
Who was it last year who almost got relegated? Like, they just dodged relegation barely. Or was it Brazil?
I think it was Brazil, but I mean, it happens everywhere at different points where fans are out of control. It was like a big club that
just barely dodged relegation, and like we were talking about it or watching it, thinking like, if they get relegated, they're going to have to like dig a hole and crawl out of the stadium under tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the world you're in, and being a fan doesn't give you that license. And if you're going to make the statements that were made this week, and probably some of the Manchester United fans who broke in did the same thing, like, you can't then do this because you lose your seat at the table. When you get wrapped up into a team, of course we all lose our common sense from time to time. That is being a fanatic, and that's understandable. But there's a difference between, getting angry because your striker didn't score goals, or getting angry because your goalkeeper made a mistake, or getting angry because somebody got a dumb red card, and chasing them as they get off the bus, or breaking into the team's facilities. Those can't be on the same level, and we can't put them there, and we can't just chalk it up to, oh, well, this was because they tried to join the Super League, so it's justified. No, it's not. It's not okay. And that stuff has to change. people do have to understand what the game is today and understand their role in it. Because when fans and media demand a team to spend more money than they actually have, you get into some of these situations. Do some teams just spend badly? Of course they do. Barcelona, prime example. But would Barcelona have spent all that money if they weren't being pressured to keep up with the Joneses, to keep up? All of those things. No. There's a reckoning that has to come with this. Everybody is zeroing in, and this is my frustration on the Super League stuff at this point. Everybody's zeroing in now on the American system, closed system, no pro rel, all that's bad. Done and dusted, let's go. You've got to look at the other elements of this. It's not good that the domestic leagues are not as compelling. And I know we had the argument at the end of the show yesterday. People watch leagues for the relegation side as well as the big teams. But you can't tell me that's in the same correlation. Look at the TV ratings. More people watch big games. They just do. Do you tune in at the end to see who's going to get relegated on the last day? Sure, because it's a big moment. It turns into a big game. But you're not watching West Brom every week because, they might get relegated. This is must-see TV. No, it's not. The ratings don't show that. The ratings show up for Manchester City and Liverpool, for Manchester United and Chelsea. They show up for those big games. So it's not in the same number. Of course people watch, and of course there's fans of smaller teams. But it's not in the same thing. We have to understand that. We have to understand that there are money issues in this game. All over the world. It's not just a European thing. Santos is going to have to sell one of their best players, now, because they can't pay on a transfer they did 2 years ago. Independiente's had to sell players, and Atlanta United's benefited because they haven't been able to pay the players or pay the transfers from years ago. You've got Barcelona with debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. You've got Manchester United with debt. That's partially down to the way the Glazers bought the club. Mostly. You've got Chelsea with debt. Don't know exactly what everything is entailing there, but they've got a ton of debt on their books. Tottenham just built a stadium. They got debt. There's a ton of different things that are real that have nothing to do with the closed system argument. The more the game sticks its head in the sand and says, we won, we defeated the bad guys, and doesn't actually look at what led to all of this, and it's been talked about for a decade plus, so it's not new. It needs to be done, and it is a good time to actually figure out. And maybe UEFA, because you're hearing some whispers, they're looking at financial fair play stuff. Salary cap has come up. I don't see how that happens, but it would be great.
That's not going to go over well.
It's not, but you've got to have these conversations more than, yay, we beat the baddies, because that doesn't help fix any of the things that are wrong, that are not
also
good.
Implies UEFA was the good guys, which is amazing.
Better guys, but nobody's good guys in this. It's incredibly frustrating because scapegoats are being looked for rather than solutions to the actual issues that are staring at you in the face, but you're turning around and not looking in the mirror.
I will readily admit that I am one of those folks that is intrigued by the relegation battle. But I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and watch West Brom every single week as a part of the underlying story.
If I'm a West Brom fan, different conversation. But
True,
if you're a neutral, no, I'm sorry, it's not compelling.
Right. Championship chases, European chases, league determinations, and European competitions are far more attractive when it comes to what you're viewing and what you're looking for in your normal viewing habits than whether or not Fulham, Brighton, Newcastle, and West Brom are going to be sent down to the championship. Decision day, that's compelling television. That is one day out of 38. The other 37 leads you to what you're going to be looking at when it comes to who's going to be having championships and things like that. And just because your team, if you're under the impression that because of everything that's gone on over the last little while that you beat the man, that we showed it to the man, and now this means that we're entitled to sit there and throw eggs and launch fireworks and set things on fire and go into training grounds and actually commit crimes to get your point across. It doesn't make the fan look any better in this situation with everything going on right now. It's be better. The best way that I can phrase it. If you're a fan,
it's not going to work
better.
with the after school attitude though, John. Like, be better. Nobody cares. That's not going to help. Like, they don't care about being better in this scenario. They're angry. And they were angry, especially at Manchester United. They were angry with the ownership way before anything with the Super League.
Right.
And they're using it as justification. It's not.
It's a convenient excuse, yeah.
It's not. Nothing. There is no justification for that. Burns says it's not true that the talk in Europe is all about the American system. Maybe the talk in England. Maybe I saw Big Sam's comments and I got triggered because he wanted to talk about it. Burns says a lot of intelligent commentators have discussed the fact that the uneven distribution of revenues and spending and excess of revenues is at the root of this. It is, and I hope that comes up more because it's not being talked about in enough places. Especially maybe on this side it's not being talked about. Maybe in England it's not being talked about enough. I hope it is in Germany. I hope it is in Spain and Italy. I hope it is in France and other parts of Europe. And I hope UEFA's listening. And I hope FIFA's listening. I do understand Perfect Tommy's point, and this is the aversion to salary caps, is then the owners make more money and the players' ability to make money is limited. I get it. However, if a player can't make $35 million a year but can make 20, I mean, are we really that sad? Like I think they're still going to be okay. And if you're seeing in the game right now, it can't support the free spending.
Right.
We've seen it in this country. And this is where you actually can look at American sport and learn from it. The NBA, the NHL would have spent themselves out of business. They would not be operating today if they didn't have a salary cap, period.
Absolutely.
They had to cap it because you can't then fight the other side. If you are a team with a lot of money, or you had a lot of money, and then maybe you've lost a lot of money, and that diminishes, and people don't necessarily know that, and you're not doing well, what is the outcry? Spend, spend, spend. Buy this player. Get this player. Pay them the money. Do everything. Get them. Okay, we can't pay our bills now. All right, bye. I mean, you've got to fix this. And I think some kind of a controlled spending thing. Financial fair play was a hackneyed halfway solution that ultimately limited new teams coming in and spending money when they had new investors. If you came in under financial fair play and you get your magical oligarch who shows up with a fat checkbook, you had limitations in what they could actually do, or they had to be creative in working around it, and then that can make it difficult for the team if said oligarch decides, I don't really like this idea, I'm out. Because you got to sell the stadium to them, and then you got to rent, and you got to do this, and you got to do that to try to pump the money into the club. It is time to actually look at the big picture. It really, really is time to look at the big picture for this sport. The pandemic didn't create the issues, it exacerbated the issues, and it did do damage to some teams that maybe were not in a position to be damaged as much at this point. But it didn't create the underlying problems. Teams need more control on their spending, and I mean, it's going to come one of two ways. Either they're not going to have it to pay the players, or you're going to put some brakes on it to keep what we like about the game and not have teams disappear on a regular basis. So, I don't know. I mean, if the conversation is going to continue to be closed systems and no pro rel, I think the point's being missed. I sadly think the point's being missed, and we'll see. Sam Stejskal had a good balanced look at it at The Athletic and talked about some of the MLS elements and comparisons to it. MLS is on the flip side, and the comparison doesn't hold up when you understand why MLS is the way that it is when it was launched. You wouldn't have had a league if you didn't have controls built in. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have happened because nobody created a league for 10, 12 years after the NASL died. It wasn't there. You had to have the controls in to get people to invest. You did. It was still difficult. You got through it. Now you're growing. Now you need to remove some of those controls. The controls are still necessary because I think there's some kind of controls that are necessary across the board. But now you need to remove some of that in MLS. You need to open things up more, but keep some control. Rest of the world, especially Europe, you need to put some controls in place that are actually legit, not financial fair play where you can appeal it and fight it and then nothing happens like Manchester City. You need some real controls there. Neither is the perfect situation because there isn't one. You've got to find the balance between love of the game, competition, all the things that at its purest form, why we're here, why we're talking about it. But you've also got to understand the need for revenues and financial controls and money in the game. And look at the big pictures. And this is where, crazy old Florentino Perez isn't 100% off his rocker. There are, when you look down into the future, there are issues with what is the next generation going to do and how they consume the game. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to change? Do you need to try to get ahead of that? Do they care about some of the history? I don't know if they do. You need to learn these things. Do they care about the idea of teams getting relegated in decision day, or do they only really care about the big teams? I just did a survey, for example, for Paramount Plus as a subscriber. One of the big things they kept hitting at in their survey was, do you follow teams or do you follow players? And I think the new generation follows players as much or more than they follow teams. And that changes the paradigm. Because then you're not really caring about the neighborhood club that might get relegated from the second division, and you're not looking at it the same way. You're following where Cristiano Ronaldo is. You're following where Kylian Mbappe is. These are real things. And whether it's, as Bart says, a transfer fee cap, whether it's an agent fee cap, whether it's a salary cap, whether it's a number of things, if you keep sticking your head in the sand and saying everything is great, this is going to come back. Whether it's a Super League or it's Barcelona going under. And sure, X-Pen, there are clubs that get relegated and go bankrupt and most return in a few years. There's a lot that don't. There's a lot that don't return to where they were. I'm still looking for Portsmouth. I'm still looking for Bolton. Portsmouth was in an FA Cup final 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Bolton, under Big Sam, before he completely got negative, Bolton was a top half team in the Premier League in the last 20 years.
Yep.
Early 2000s.
Yep.
Never again. Never again. They're not coming back. Leeds is special, but how many owners did Leeds go through to get to where they are now? A whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Leeds is the exception. Like, it's Rangers, a whole different situation. Because, they were the biggest alongside Celtic. And yeah, they had to rebuild it, but you had resources even from the jump when you were rebuilding it that were way past everybody else. It's just different. In EU, yeah, you're having some different conversations, of course. Every country's different with this. In this country, I've seen so many teams come and go, it would make your head spin. That's why you have controls to try to protect that from happening now. Again, where I'm at with it, I love this game. I love all the craziness in it. I do follow the business side of it because I think it's important to understand where it can go. And there's some clouds on the horizon that need to be if not addressed right this second with something like this crazy hackneyed idea like the Super League, it can't be ignored either. There should be a storm warning popping off somewhere. Maybe it's a watch now, if we want to get into our weather terminology. Maybe it's a watch. Maybe you're just on alert. But UEFA, FIFA, CONMEBOL in South America, CONCACAF here, all the leagues, the federations have to look at it. The clubs do their business day to day. Of course they should be looking at it. It's not always easy for them. I can understand that. The people in higher positions have to be looking at this and how they can, because they're the stewards of the game. The clubs are to an extent of themselves, of their fan base, of who they are, not for the whole league. The leagues, the federations, the confederations, and FIFA have to be better stewards for the game and try to help solve some of these issues. At least be aware of them. I mean, I don't know. Jarrett, am I crazy? At least more than usual?
I was about to qualify that.
I know. I wanted to get out ahead of you.
Good man. No, I mean, I guess it's my thing is, when you start getting into everything that's happened this week, it's like, oh, we won, victory, McGett. But is anything going to change? Because you had a bunch of teams decide they were going to try and break away, allegedly, in just a mess of a system. It's also the same teams you're going to see every year in the quarterfinals and the semifinals of the Champions League anyway. The last state of the Champions League might as well be a Super League. Yeah, sure, Ajax got in there a couple years ago. That's the exception to the rule. That's not the rule. You can't look at that every 4 years ago. Oh, no, see, we got one in. Wide open. Could anybody could make it happen? Like, no, it's the teams that spend money. It's the teams that have the big owners. And for me, that goes back to like the Glazers and like Fenway Sports. Like, y'all wanted somebody who's going to come in and spend money. You had to go find that somewhere. I mean, you had to go across the Atlantic Ocean, apparently, to find the owner who was going to do that, or someone came with enough of a proposal for you to sell to them. It's great, the idea of being, like, fan-owned, like some of these smaller clubs. Here's the problem with that. If you're fan-owned, I know people like that concept, and it's very romantic. You're not spending $90 million on transfers every window if you're fan-owned. Here to tell you, that's not going to happen. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be the fan-owned local thing and then also support a super club? Cool. I don't think that's a bad way to go about it. You can support more than one club if you want to. And you can support clubs in other countries. And I mean, Absolutely. The game's so global now. Mm-hmm. Like, yes. That has always been seen as this horrible, horrible thing. I think the way that people, and maybe not our generation, maybe the teenagers today, I don't think they care about our traditions as much. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I gave up because I was the kid in high school who loved music that challenged the status quo. I hip-hop, alternative, I loved all of it. It was not the music for my parents. I loved it. So, like, the music today for teenagers, it's not for me. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and be like, well, the music was so much better in my day, and this is garbage, and I don't understand what they're saying, and why do they make it so loud, and all that kind of nonsense. It's not for me. Now, you're going to see changes because the next generation coming through is making it for them. They're going to consume it the way they want to consume it. And that might come at the expense of the smaller community clubs or a club like, as X-Pen points out, like Wimbledon, Bolton now. I mean, I think there is some reconstituted version of Bury that's trying to come back. Yes. You're going to see them around, but I don't think they ever get back to where they were. Leeds finally did, and they were probably running out of time to do it, and they went through a bunch of ownership changes to get there. The way they do is if somebody comes in and buys them and pumps a lot of money into it. But as they're currently constructed, they're going to be different. And that might be fine. And like Jarrett says, you might be in a situation, and I could absolutely see this, where
kids in that community, in that town, they like the local team. They might play for the academy. They might, aspire to play for the first team. But they're also looking at Barcelona or Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or PSG or Juventus, or even in their own country, your Liverpools and Manchester Cities and Manchester Uniteds. And it's not for us to say that that's wrong and unacceptable. That's for them to decide. And the game has to be smart enough to understand that you got to ride that tide. If the fans control the game, again, as we've been told all week, that's it. They control it. Well, understand there's another generation coming through that doesn't necessarily want to do it like you did. And you got to be ready for that. And the game's got to be ready for that, or it's going to suffer. I think baseball is doing that right now.
Yeah. And I think that just because the consumer of today is X, whatever personality traits you want to attach to it, doesn't mean that those traits are going to transfer to subsequent generations of fans. You have to learn in any business, and we talked about how franchises are businesses. Any business worth their salt knows how to pivot, knows how to understand the marketplace, and you make sure that your business decisions will ensure your survival in the marketplace. If it means doing things with multi-generations, you make sure that you can sit there and understand that your older generation of fans are going to be following you in a certain way, but at the same time, their kids, their cousins, whatever, the next generation through is going to be consuming things differently. How do you make sure that you can understand where they're coming from and be a plausible product for them to follow at the same time that you can sit there and still be there for your older generations? That's the challenge of businesses today and sports franchises in this conversation. How do you sit there, make your product viable for multiple generations, knowing that their viewing habits, their consumption habits are going to be different and are proving themselves to be different?
Jarrett, final thoughts from you, because I'm assuming you're out after hour number one.
Yeah, I have to go get behind the giant lead shield that I get behind when John does his read.
Smart.
Safety first,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's all of this in the sense of things are changing. How much they change just kind of depends right now, but things will change again in 5 years and 10 years down the road. As people change and ideas change, or the game changes, that's fine. It's going to change, and you just got. The best you can do is just make peace with it and just kind of roll with it and try and stay on the front edge of things if you want to be successful. Now, if you want to get into the ownership thing and people want owners to change, like, okay, where are you going to find the big money owners? Do you want to go get a Russian oligarch? Do you want to go get somebody, from the Middle East? Because Newcastle just tried that. Got awkward for everybody.
Yeah, because they didn't want somebody else to join the club with a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the whole idea of people talking about, it's football might have died. We saved football. Like, did you though?
Florentino Perez was saying that too. That he was there to save football.
Everybody saved football, and at the same time, they weren't. The one that killed me was people talking about, like, Chelsea saved the game today. I'm like, no. Chelsea started to join this thing. You planned, metaphorically, y'all planned a robbery. Y'all rented the trucks, got the ammunition, got the zip ties, got the bags. You had the fence lined up. You had everything ready for the robbery, and at the last minute, you decided not to do it. We don't shake your hand and give you the key to the city because you decided to not commit the robbery.
Thank you for not robbing our bank.
That's not how it works.
No, it shouldn't be. I'll end the
problems you can fix without a super league. So, pitter patter, let's get at her.
I'll end the Super League down here discussion with It was a horrible idea. I hope that's understood. It was not well thought out. If you're going to do a revolution, you might want to make sure you actually have a plan instead of just, yeah, rawr. Oh, wait a minute. Because the plan they had didn't actually solve the issues they're complaining about. There was no TV revenue attached to it. There was no real plan for these teams to actually make more money. They just had somebody backing them to get started. There was no actual real strategy to what happened. And that's what's so shocking about it. And that's what I still would love to know, why they actually pushed the button to go live with this nonsense when they didn't have a plan. I don't know if we'll ever get that understanding. We'll see. But some of the underlying issues that should be talked about more, maybe they are. I hope it's happening in more places. I hope it's big, that you're looking at controlling the finances, making clubs be more sustainable. Because ultimately, whether you love your fifth division team in your neighborhood because it's been part of your family for generations, or you love the biggest team on the planet, you want them to be sustainable because you want them to be around for the next generations to come. That history is important, but it's all at risk, and especially coming off the heels of a pandemic where, billions and billions of dollars have been lost in all businesses, but the world of football is no different. So, yeah, you got to actually think about these things right now. I mean, whether it's a small club who can pivot easily because you're not talking about huge revenues that they lost, or it's a giant club who, probably got hit harder. I would assume that the pandemic affected a Manchester City and a Liverpool far more than it did a Cambridge United, because you're just talking about a bigger scale and where their money's coming from was affected more. So that's the reality, and we can't ignore this stuff, and we've got to find ways to make it better. You always have to push to make things better instead of whatever the Super League idea was, because Florentino Perez is still running off at the mouth, and he'll say one thing that has a modicum of truth to it, and then he'll say 5 things that sound like he was huffing paint before he said them. And I think he's running out of radio shows in Madrid to go to, but maybe he'll find another one and say more nonsense today. Who knows? But there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be resolved from this. I hope the need for revenge and the need for vengeance from leagues and teams who are not part of it doesn't block them from doing the things that are right for the game and for themselves. Because vengeance might not be the best thing for themselves. Figure out the right way to ensure it doesn't happen again, but don't try to go too far with this, or it's just going to hurt it like it did in Scotland for a number of years with Rangers not being part of the competition. And I don't think the Scottish game is fully recovered from that. Jarrett, you get the last word before John does his read.
Make sure you got your lead bibs on, and make sure you're safe for John's read.
There you go. Make sure you're following Jarrett_Smith on Twitter. And I think you actually type out the underscore on Instagram. Is that correct?
Yes, he does. Yeah, he jetted. He went to go hide behind his. I mean,
it's valid. Apron. Yes, it is Jarrett with the underscore Smith on Twitter. It is written out on Instagram. Jarrett UNDER score.
SCORE Smith. That's the whole
Thank
thing.
You for
written
continuing to spell it in case people didn't know how to spell score. I figured with soccer they might know how to spell score. Just saying. All right, John's got to tell us about our good friend in Decatur, GA, Steve Apolinsky, right now.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network for wrongful death and serious injury matters. One place you need to go, Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. 3 different ways that you can do it. You can pick up the phone, dial 404-377-9191, get a free consultation that way. You can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small, type in aa-legal.com in the address bar, hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you to the screen that will give you everything that you need to know for the homepage at Apolinsky and Associates. All the different cases that they can handle for you, all the different awards and recognitions that they have accrued over 30 years of experience in getting over $40 million for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. You can also shoot Steve an email if you feel so inclined at steve@aa-legal.com. That's it. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. It's aa-legal.com. Let's go to hour number 2.
That was an interesting read, John.
Oh, so jumble the order up a little bit, see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see what people think.
Of course,
we will see what people think, and we're going to move on from Super League stuff because it's no good.
It hurts
it's no
your
fun.
head.
It's not how I want to spend my time. We've done enough of it. Mr. Fantastic loved your read. 2 days in a row with a 10. Sean said, what? LOL. I don't know what that means. Jason Nick says, did John get a game show host job? Wasn't feeling it today. 6. Katie, whoa, false ending, then real ending. It was going so well till then, 7.9. Yeah, what happened there?
Trying to figure out how to integrate the third one and then not try to say Apolinsky and Associates, LLC every 8th word.
Okay. That was weird. Abby low scored it yesterday, was way too fast. Liked it today, not rushed. Could understand it, 9.65. Smooth, 7.7. Alex Basine, 10.01, still basking in the afterglow of yesterday.
Everyone's basking in that. That seems to be the Hall of Fame read of all time.
So why'd you do it different today? I mean, that's a valid question, isn't it? It's like, this was really good. This was awesome. Everybody loved it. I'm going to do it differently now. Strategery by John Nelson. Nick gives you an 8. Not as good as yesterday's wrestling promo read. Brad, every read ever will be compared to yesterday's. That was a very good read. Need a better conclusion. 8.5 from the Central Time Zone in Madison, Alabama.
Morning, Madison.
CLC says, best yet, but I'm hungover. I like it. Sean Vergara, the ending killed it. Gave up a late equalizer to Big Sam, 3.1234. Ricky sent this before because he got a meeting, but gave you a 7 because there's no way you could top yesterday's read. And Ron says, look, even Braun can't drop 50 every night. It's true. But I don't think he changes the way he shoots because he gets bored.
Sometimes Braun tries to force it in situations when he doesn't need to. And that's how he doesn't get 50.
And that's what you did, and I'm saying that's a bad idea. Why are you... I'm not even going to try to ask, because sometimes you try to spin things into directions that just drive me insane. Byrne says you need to tell John every day that Mike is already on the call. Today was a 7.3.
That's probably true, Byrne.
7 out of 10. The faster he goes, the less he wanders. That is accurate. Yesterday is the standard from now on. See, Abby hated yesterday, though. So Abby is the lone one I think I've seen who didn't like yesterday. Everybody else loved it. Oh, my goodness. All right, we're going to get into some domestic stuff on our side of the Atlantic and talk about something Mr. Fantastic sent my way yesterday. Didn't get into it because of all the madness going on. The TV ratings from the weekend. Sunday's audience on ESPN, they are very happy about it. Largest audience for MLS on ESPN Network season opening day since 2011 for the Miami-LA Galaxy game that was on ABC. Up 9% over 2020 season opening MLS doubleheader. 558,000 viewers since 2011, which was a little bit more than that. That's ABC and ESPN Deportes. 9% over last year. ABC 482,000, Deportes 75,000. Top markets, Birmingham was number 1, Austin was number 2, Columbus, Ohio 3, Raleigh-Durham 4, Vegas 5. More than Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Los Angeles, which is interesting. And Atlanta was 10th out of that. Also on the ratings thing, as we've kind of talked about in big picture stuff, so ABC's happy. Fox, with the LAFC Austin game, 485,000 viewers on Fox. I don't think that's including Fox Deportes. I think that is just on Fox.
I think that's just straight Fox, yeah.
And that's down big from last year, but last year was Atlanta-Nashville in prime time versus, a 6 o'clock kick?
6 o'clock
on Saturday?
Kick. Yeah.
That's a dead time period.
It is.
So to get that rating's actually pretty good. In comparison, people twist the numbers, but when you're comparing a 6 Eastern kick to an 8 Eastern kick, yeah, it's completely different worlds there. On ABC, Fox, and NBC, and this is excluding TUDN, the Spanish language networks. It's ABC, Fox, and NBC, the big networks that have soccer matches on their over-the-air broadcast channel. It's Premier League games that are at the top. They're not at the top overall. The Liga MX big games are at the top overall in ratings. But on NBC, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Manchester City, Tottenham, Fulham, Chelsea are the top 4. Big 6 clubs involved in all of those. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A men's friendly with Northern Ireland and USA is next. You scroll down, the Bayern-Dortmund game on ABC drew better than the Miami-LA Galaxy game on ABC did, by less than 100,000, but close to 100,000. The Fiorentina-Atalanta game on ABC was an awful number, and it was kind of just thrown in there, again, with no real build-up or anything. Wolves-Brighton got 686,000 on NBC. Fulham-West Ham got 681. About 200,000 less, and this is just U.S. ratings, this isn't talking about worldwide stuff, about 200,000 less than the ones involving the big 6 clubs. So to get a sense of where those ratings are, it needs to be better for MLS. They need to continue to push. How do you do that? It's kind of the same conversation we were just having to a degree, right? You've got to have compelling things about the league to get people to watch. You've got to have stars. You've got to spend for stars. There's a lot of things that go into this that change that rating. You've also got to have promotion. You got to have shoulder programming. You got to have consistency. I mean, the big things that I think help other leagues in this country on TV, besides the star power, besides the history, besides the perceptions at times about, it's so much better quality, consistency. Flat out consistency. I mean, I don't have to look at when there could be Premier League games on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You get a little bit of weird things with like time differences and daylight savings time, and occasionally you'll get something moved, but it's the exception. You got a 7:30 game on Saturday. You got games at 10. You got 12:30s. Now you're getting a later kick on Saturday right now. You got Sunday times. You get a Monday game fairly often, Monday Night Football. When the games are going to be. MLS, games for national TV, they could be at any time.
Yes.
They could be really at any time from noon until a 10 o'clock kick in the East. Any of those. It could be at 12. It could be at 12:30. It could be at 1. It could be at 1:30. It could be at 2, and so on. You don't know. So it's not appointment viewing. And that's what's frustrating is if you have watched the Premier League on NBC, this is pre-Peacock days, which will get people riled up, you would get up on Saturdays, and we've seen NFL stars talk about this. You get up on Saturday, turn on NBCSN, you got the morning game on, you got the show in between games, getting you ready, you got the 10 o'clock kicks. Boom. You just turn the TV on, it's on. It might be a game you're loving, it might be a game that's in the background, but it's there. You don't know when MLS will be there. That's got to change. It will help on the TV side, and it's such a simple thing to do. It's just consistency. I don't know why it isn't like that. I don't know why we haven't learned from this yet. I just don't get it.
No, and you could look on J.J. Watt's Twitter account. He's a big Chelsea fan. When Chelsea's on, JJ's always posting to either Instagram or Twitter or both that he's got his cup of coffee, he's got his mug, he's got his feet up, and he's showing the TV screen. So when NBC took over, It was the 7:30, the 10, and the 12:30. And
well, those times were there before. NBC didn't make those times.
That's what I'm getting to. Before,
don't give NBC too much credit.
Yeah, before, right now where we are with the pandemic, where every game is on television and it's in its own individual time slot, you had multiple games at 10 o'clock. You had the one at 7:30, you had the 12:30, and that's what it was on Saturday and Sunday. And then you had Monday Night Football, which for us was a 2:30 or a 3 o'clock kick, 7:30 or 8 o'clock over in England. You knew what you were getting when you were getting it, straight up. These are the times, this is what we've done forever, and this hasn't changed, and we ain't changing now. Here in the United States, you were just going through it with what we were looking at from a ratings perspective. When you're showing, as Big Fox was, a 6 o'clock Eastern time kick for a game between Austin and LAFC, and you have other networks in other time slots all across the board. I mean, seriously, you could have that noon kick. You could have the 10 o'clock kick to get you into late night if you're FS1 to give you the MLS After Dark. The consistency or lack of consistency in trying to sit there and make it appointment viewing, you're not getting the numbers that you should be getting for the quality of the contest that you're putting in those time slots at times. And we talked about it in the past. Friday night game of the week. Turn it into an experience. 7:30 kick. You started at 7 with your pregame. You do your kick at 7:30, 7:38. You go until 9:20, 9:30. You go till 10 o'clock, or you slide it an hour to get you through to 11 o'clock, depending on what it is. Make it an appointment viewing. And then that way, everybody knows, regardless of the market, when you're having your game of the week, capital letters, game of the week, capital letters in quotation marks, underlined, exclamated. They know when it is. Instead of having to chase it to where your numbers suffer when you're looking at a product, come up with that appointment viewing so everyone can be attracted to it and sit there and go, oh, my team's on the game of the week, capital T. You know when it's going to be, you go to it, and you gravitate toward it, and you have all of the programming, the shoulder programming around it. Make it an event instead of having folks chase it as much as they are.
You have to look at it as a TV product. And I know, again, this gets back to the idea of fans control, et cetera, et cetera. The TV money is what shapes it. It's what shaped the Premier League. We know that. It's what turned it into what it is, the TV money. Other leagues don't have it, so they can't beat it, and that's a huge issue. You've got to make it an attractive TV product. And, yeah, that means an exclusive game of the week for me and knowing exactly what it is. And MLS, I think, has two options. Friday night, I think, has always been a night that MLS should exploit. Start the weekend action with a big game on Friday night. Mm-hmm. 2DN did that for a little while in Spanish, and it was actually really cool. You'd get usually an Eastern Conference game, a Western Conference game, a 7:30 and a 10, and you had the shoulder programming around it. Good stuff. Or, I mean, you could do both if you want, if you've got the partners to do it, or you do a Monday night game. And I know people are going to say, NFL, Monday night, NFL, scary. I don't think the overlap in the audience is that big. I think you could do that with, okay, not ESPN, because they're going to try to make Monday Night Football with the NFL a big thing in the fall for, 17 weeks out of the year, 18 weeks out of the year. But there's other channels. There's other ways to do it. Fox would probably like something that might draw a different audience at that time. You could find a way to do it. So that could be the conclusion to the week, and that's what the Premier League has done with their Monday Night Football, and they've made it a big TV property, and they have their huge studio show that is must-watch television, on Monday nights. You could do that too. You could do both, because you're going to have, pretty soon, 14 games and then 15 games every week in a normal match week. You're not going to have unique time slots for all. But I think where you really need to be, and this is for the culture as well. I mean, if you're a youth soccer family, right, and you have games that could be all over the place on Saturdays and Sundays. If you know that your local team is going to play their games when they're on national TV on Friday night or on Monday night, you know that outside of that, you've got a couple windows that are going to be normal windows for the league to play in, and you're always going to have a game that has to slide for whatever reason. That's fine. It happens everywhere. It's not any reason to freak out. But in general, 7:30 or 8 o'clock kicks, pick it, I don't care, on Saturday night, and that can be East and West. You know, you've got the games in the East, you've got the games in the West that kick off at 7:30 or 8 local time. Maybe you have a Sunday afternoon game if that's a time slot that works. Do the studies to figure out what those regular slots should be. And where National wants to jump in on those, that's great. That's cool. But they're going to be at certain times, and that's it. The Monday and the Friday is your appointment viewing. I really think that's the way you got to go. And that will start to change these ratings because of the way this works. We kind of did our own, bootleg version of it because it was just us watching games. But Saturday night with a Golasso show or wraparound show kind of idea would be brilliant for somebody to do. It feels like it's right up Fox's alley to throw something like that on FS1, FS2 on a Saturday night where you're bouncing around game to game. It'd be amazing. It'd be really cool to do where you have the bulk of your games in those windows. But create some consistency. It's an issue for the league, and it will affect their TV ratings until they do it.
And, for me, trying to, study up and try to get as much consumed as possible, it basically means that I'm having to lock out entire days and go from beginning to end to watch all of the games in between.
Schedule release day is always the big thing for me because it's like, okay, then I got to go into my calendar and put all the Atlanta United and Atlanta United 2 games in and have everything around that. And then, it's just a crapshoot, like, as to watching other games will be. You never know. They can do this. Ricky, yeah, I know ESPN Plus could absolutely do that. I'm saying about the new package to sell it, because you're going to have to create the structure in the next package, which will start with the 23 season. Consistent games of the week. No wiggle room on, well, it'll be this day, then sometimes it'll be this day, and sometimes it'll be this time, and sometimes it'll be here. No. Sell it. Sell it. I think you have the brand to do it. You can't control if Lionel Messi's going to come to Miami outside of everybody kicking in a fat check to bring him here. You can't control if you develop superstars in your own academies. You can work on it. You can't guarantee it. You can control what time you set your kickoffs to be. You can control how you negotiate with your TV partners and say, this is what we want to deliver better ratings to you. This is what we're selling. You can control those things. Get better at the things you can control.
National Football League. 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
4 or 4:20, depending on the matchup. You know what you're getting. So the networks can go from basically 1 to 8 o'clock with whatever the programming is. And you get the shoulder programming to go after Fox goes off the air and what have you. And it blends itself into Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football has the shoulder programming. You know that it's going to be at 8:20 when Sunday Night Football kicks off, goes to 11:30 or beyond. You know what you're getting when you're dealing with these particular products. And it's been that way. So, folks, it's second nature for them to sit there and jump in. It's like, okay, the Falcons are a 1 o'clock game today. So I know what I'm doing at 1 o'clock if I'm a Falcons fan. I'm sitting there and watching it. You're locked into what you know. And with MLS, you're still chasing. It's like Rocky and the chicken in Rocky 2. Rocky... It's like you're chasing the chicken, trying to grab it so you can figure out, so you can prove to the world that you got speed.
But the biggest thing, it's not watching your team, because you'll go out of your way to watch your team, either go into the stadium or watching it on TV if you can't. It's the other games where that's where the ratings have the issues. The ratings generally are drawing the neutrals that you're trying to get. And if there's not consistency in the times, how are they going to tune in if they're not emotionally attached to it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're on, if the Falcons are playing on Sunday Night Football, I know it's crazy, an Atlanta team getting the respect of something like that, it's madness. But if they're on Sunday Night Football, you still know there's games at 1 and 4, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you want to spend your day watching the NFL all day, you can do that. If your team's playing on Monday night or on the stupid Thursday night thing, you know on Sunday afternoon there's going to be games on. If you don't have anything else going on, turn it on if you're a fan. You can't do that if you're an MLS fan. Outside of some rough, nebulous period between 5 and 11 on Saturday nights, there's going to be games in different places all over the map. Allegedly. And that's about it. Like, give me some consistency. It's crazy.
Okay,
Mr. Fantastic, hold on. Mr. Fantastic asks, do you think Paramount Plus would be a better option over ESPN Plus? Well, ESPN Plus just takes the out-of-market games. So they're just taking feeds and putting them on. If Paramount Plus did that, it'd be the same. If they did other things, then we're having a different conversation, and I just don't know. Go ahead.
Just to give you the idea, once again, to reinforce the point that we've been talking about. Here's your start times for all of your games on Saturday. And this is Eastern time. 1 at 1 o'clock, 1 at 2 o'clock, 1 at 3 o'clock, 1 at 3:30, 1 at 6, 4 at 8, 1 at 9, and 1 at 10:30.
Where's the 9 o'clock game?
Colorado, Austin.
Fair enough. It's a 7 o'clock local. I can at least deal with that. But there weren't any other 7 o'clock locals. So, I mean.
No, you've got 8 o'clock locals. You've got a 6 o'clock local out west with LAFC in Seattle.
Was that's a 6 local or a 3 local?
Well, it's 6 Eastern, 3 local.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
So 1, 2, 3, 3:30, 6, 8, 9, 10:30. 8 different start times on Saturday for 3, 6, 9, 11 matches on your Saturday in Major League Soccer.
I can't keep up. It gives me whiplash. All right. You've been called out in the Twitch pitch, John.
Have I?
Yes, you've been called out. Ryan is asking how your fantasy lineup is looking.
Aren't we doing that tomorrow?
No!
Why aren't we doing it tomorrow?
I don't know, because he said, how's your fantasy lineup looking?
Let me just go backwards. Well, Ryan, before we talk about fantasy for next week, let's just get into fantasy for last week. I'll tackle that, and then we can talk about fantasy lineups for fixing my lineup tomorrow.
Sure.
For leading in, I had 3 guys in my lineup that did not play. It was Rossi, Pozuelo, and Mavenga.
Did you not have a device where you could change the lineups?
No, I was otherwise occupied. And so
That's not much commitment to your team, John.
Well, it was also, remember you said just to get everything in line, because the league doesn't start until this week. So, yeah, I had 3 of my guys that didn't start.
Excuses.
I ended up with a sum total of 24 points, which put me, I think, in the bottom 10% of the world when it comes to the MLS Fantasy League. So, and my roster value, you know how roster values start at 100? Because of all of the impact that my guys didn't have, my roster value actually dropped to 98.5. I had a minus 1.5 roster value from all of the inaction that happened this past week. So, yeah, my team sucked, Ryan, without question.
So the real reason why John didn't want to even talk about it at all before getting into his lineup is he needs a lot of help.
I just absolutely sucked. That was some
would be why you need a lot of help.
suckage that happened last week. I would tell you that.
Yeah, so he's got work to do. We will see how that goes. We got a few more minutes before we get Niko Moreno on the line. It's early out on the West Coast. Niko is preparing to join us here in just a bit. One little bit of interesting stuff that was tweeted out just a little bit. So, Bowl, which is the Miami-based company that did the awesome Montserrat kits, they now have a deal with Trinidad and Tobago.
Yep, men's and women's.
Yes. which is awesome. They should be very, very cool, and I'm sure lots of people will be buying them. Bowl does good stuff, so want to see what they do with Trinidad and Tobago. That should be a lot of fun. It's cool to see some different people coming in and working with some of these smaller national teams, smaller clubs as well. We see that across the U.S. right now with all the grassroots clubs doing unique and kind of small companies doing them. So they're not having to make big mass production, but they're doing some really cool, unique kits. And Bowl is one of the new ones in it. They did great on kit number 1 with Montserrat. Let's see what they do with Trinidad and Tobago.
Based out of Miami, small outfit, and that's I like to see this kind of creative freedom being shown up. And Bowl's taking some big steps right now. They were 1 for 1. I want to see if they go 2 for 2 and how popular it is. And so Bowl's doing a great job right now of, in the fall, when I'm solvent, making me poor. And that's always a good sign.
That is always a good thing. Fabrizio Romano just tweeted out that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is going to stay at Milan for another year. There is a statement due in the next few hours. Done, completed, and here we go. Fabrizio Romano tweets out. So he's going to do another year at Milan. Maybe 1 year too many?
I'm thinking.
Maybe? We'll see.
And how much trouble is he going to be getting into for his alleged shadow company interest in a betting company?
Well, I don't even know if they're going to do anything about that because, of course, they're going to skip that. Yeah, no. I mean, he racially abused Romelu Lukaku, and no.
Still waiting for that wasn't.
He was making a joke about something that an Everton person said years ago. He was referring to that in the heat of the moment because I'm sure he had thought about that Everton
all of that
board member
statement, on a Everton incident.
Yeah, sure. Zlatan is he needs to go far, far away. Sorry, Nick, but he absolutely does. Milan should need somebody else because I don't think they're going to get the return they think they're going to get from him. I think it's 1 year too many. They should have called time on it and moved on. One other thing on the Super League madness is Gazzetta della Sport in Italy is saying that clubs are calling on UEFA for sanctions on Real Madrid and Juventus, the leaders of the Super League nonsense, suggested to ban them from the Champions League for a year. UEFA is preparing clauses to prevent such actions in the future. New registration rules, reformed financial fair play, and salary cap are being discussed. So good, they're talking about some real things. I don't think you make your Champions League better by banning them for a year.
Yeah,
I do understand the sentiment. I think people would then point and say, well, why aren't the other 10 being banned for the year as well? Do you want to do that? I don't know. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what direction they go.
And I'm sorry to keep making this the Super League down here, but haven't Barca and Real still not said that they're not out?
Yeah, but it's somewhat complicated as people have alluded to. Football Italia had a recap of this using the Financial Times article, and it's unclear what liabilities the clubs face when they actually withdraw. If the league had gotten underway and they withdrew, there would have been this huge, huge issue because they would have had to give back the money they got up front. Well, that didn't happen. But it's unclear as to what the people who have said they're withdrawing actually do have to pay if there's a penalty, or if the remaining clubs could sue the ones that withdrew. So I think the ones who are saying like Juventus and Milan didn't explicitly say they were pulling out. I think that's for legal reasons. Yeah. So stay tuned on that. We don't really know the situation here.
Like I said, just thought I would ask. It's like everybody has said one thing or another in some declaratory fashion. I just hadn't heard anything out of Spain with those two.
I do agree with Byrne. Ban Agnelli and Florentino Perez from international functions instead forever. Yeah, they should not be in any leadership positions outside of their club. And their club should move on from them, but I know in Madrid's case that might not be as easy as just saying it. There are rumors out there that Juventus will move on in potentially a variety of ways at the end of the season from Agnelli. So stay tuned. But yeah, they should be banned from holding any UEFA and any FIFA positions ever. I'm totally with that.
Absolutely.
All right. Conner Antley will be with us in the USL Championship block at 11 o'clock. But we're going to get now to Niko Moreno, or at least Mateo is going to get to getting Niko Moreno
Mateo
on the line. So we can talk more MLS, look back at week 1, look ahead to week 2, and get a Western Conference perspective from our friend Niko Moreno from Pulso Sport. Niko was with me on being worried about the Sounders last week, and we were both really off on it because the Sounders ended up with one of the results of the weekend. Niko, are you with us?
Hey, how you doing? How's it going over there?
Good. How's it going for you?
Ready to go early in the West Coast, but happy to be with y'all in the East Coast. So, it's been interesting and surprising week 1 of MLS play, and so there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, you just mentioned one of those surprises for a lot of us, pundits, as Brian Smetzer would call us.
I was right there with you.
But definitely a good week.
Yeah, it was a good start to the season, I think, because you had some kind of cagey matches with Atlanta and Orlando, Columbus and Philly. But then you had the chaos that we expect in the league with the Nashville-Cincinnati match. Chicago-New England was a 2-2. Galaxy and Miami was bonkers. And, I mean, we'll start it with the late game on Friday night. Minnesota came in and completely laid an egg after starting well. I thought they were going to get a goal early. They came out all guns blazing, give up one, and they looked like they just fell apart mentally.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything, honestly. I think that you do have to give some credit to Brian Smetzer and the adjustments he made at halftime. You saw how much they struggled in the first 20 minutes to even get out of their own third. They were struggling to just build out play. They were predictable, knew who was having issues coming out from the back in this new position. And then slowly things just started getting better for the team, and Josh Atencio started to take off this shell from a rookie into this odd veteran on the field, and it just helped a great deal. So the second half comes around, and Minnesota does not finalize, does not concrete their chances in the first half, and that just kind of changes the game because they did have some opportunities to create at least one goal. And Seattle in the second half was just great. You got to give the coaching staff credit. I was surprised. You guys know that I was very skeptical about the lineup, more so after I started starting 11 when, Brian decides to keep Yemar Gomez Andrade, the club's best defender of the year, in the bench, and Josh Atencio, a 19-year-old that's played 11 minutes last season, in the starting lineup against these great midfield with Grey Goose and Ozzy and Reynoso. So it was definitely, without needing it, I guess in some way, it was a statement win for Seattle of, hey, a lot of you guys had us wrong. We are young. We don't have a lot of pieces, but we can still play soccer.
Well, and at the same time, though, I know a lot of folks outside the Pacific Northwest who watch Seattle from a distance. They're used to the slow start. I know that Seattle fans are used to that slow start when it comes to the Sounders. It's referring to them as the zombie Sounders, and then they come out of lane 8 toward the end of the regular season, make that push, come in as gangbusters, make their impact in the playoffs, and chase after an MLS Cup. Legitimately, how much of a surprise was this result coming out of the blocks, knowing the slow start that everyone's used to seeing?
It was a big surprise to me, to perhaps a few others in the press box, although maybe not others that immediately added me some comments
Always
that
happens.
I had made. I'm very straightforward. I always have. I've been covering this team long enough. I've had them winning when nobody else had. As long as it makes sense in my head, as long as um, and the analysis is true, I'm gonna go ahead and stick with it. So I was very open when we were in the press box. But yes, it is surprising in that regard. I think that's a great point because you were thinking of a new formation that this team was going to be learning. Brian Smetzer was not shy about letting us know that he heard the noise. To my question, he took a whole 2 minutes to call us uneducated and
welcome to the season.
That's right. And, he mentioned that there was some criticism over them not playing MLS quality during the preseason, which was also something that I criticized. But they played well. So it was a surprise in many levels. I think that if Seattle, not to make a whole 180 on my comments on the team, but definitely surprised on that result, if Seattle can turn this momentum into some points early in the season as they wait for Nicolas Odero to get better, get fit, Medranda, and then, of course, the moves that we're expecting in the summer window, this could be one of the best seasons the team has had. But, I mean, this early, so let's pump the brakes. But it was surprising. It was very surprising.
So the Sounders go to Los Angeles this weekend to face LAFC. They're a big underdog in that one, which I think is to be expected. What did you take out of LAFC's win on the weekend against the new expansion team from Austin? We had the Vela situation, which was really weird. But LAFC looked all right against a team that was playing their first match.
I mean, it was good just because of what you just said. I mean, when you lose your best player to a mistakenly a substitution because you thought he was asking to be subbed out, and Bob Bradley, being the gentleman that he is at times, he took it all. He said, "It's on me." I mean, I made the call. Vela's upset. So consider that. I thought Bear did a great job up top. I thought Atuesta was as good as he always is. And that's what makes these teams so good is those core players. I think the balance in the midfield that Kane, Blessing, and Atuesta give, is what makes it all work. As long as those three players are playing good soccer, LAFC always has a chance. Not to mention that defensively, they were better. They had some struggles last season. And yes, they're playing a Austin FC team that's new. Houston isn't really a 9. Redis is still trying to get used to the MLS atmosphere. Cecilia Dominguez was okay. Considering all these things, yes, you're going to kind of take that with a grain of salt. But overall, Murillo was solid. He's the type of center back that he's not very glamorous. He's not overhyped, but he does his job, and he did it well. So definitely a good, solid, simplistic game from Bob Bradley and LAFC.
So the third J here at Soccer Down Here, Jared Smith, asks this question leading into the match this weekend. He says, what is it about Seattle that lets them father LAFC so easily?
Ooh, I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I think that Seattle really revs the guys to get them ready for this team. But we've had, or the Sounders have had, some tough losses, especially at LAFC. I know that everybody remembers Seattle in the championship season, beating them down there in a fantastic game from Raul and Nico and Javier Arriaga, bodying Carlos Vela. But I think that Brian Smith does a good job at getting the group elevated for the game. This is a rivalry, guys. Do not be told otherwise. This is a rivalry. From the moment LAFC stepped into the league, it has been a rivalry. Bob Bradley and Brian Smetzer have both said it. These are two expansion teams that are very successful. Obviously, LAFC hasn't made it quite there yet, but they always have the ability to get to the playoffs and be an interesting team. So this is always a rivalry match. It's going to be a grudge match, believe me. When we go down there, or the Sounders go down there, and they get ready to play at Bank of America. Bank of California. It's going to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, it feels like there's, some kind of animosity. I don't think Brian Schmetzer and Bob Bradley disrespect one another. I don't know if they necessarily like one another, and I think they come at the game a little bit differently. They have different perspectives on it that put them on the opposite sides. And I just went back to MLS's website to look at the schedule, and the odds just changed. Seattle is more of an underdog now. It's a big underdog against LA, which I'm actually really surprised by, because I didn't see enough out of LA on the weekend to answer the questions that I've had about their defense. They bought out Vermeer on Friday, and they're going to go with Cisniega, at least for now, and I don't think he's a starting goalkeeper in this league. Murillo was good, and he was one part of the question, but I don't trust the back line. The front six for LAFC, great. And Corey Baird answered some of the questions that we had about what would happen up top. The back four and the goalkeeper, I don't know. I don't know if they should be considered this big of a favorite over the Sounders at this point.
Yeah, and there's been an Achilles heel over the years. Bob Bradley knows that. And Seattle can expose some of those spaces that they give up. They're not going to be able to play as free as they did against Austin FC.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you got to always consider the opponent. So, yes, they look good, but you got to understand that Austin FC is a brand new team, and there's a lot of things that were not quite there. Seattle, on the other hand, you got some men playing up there. Raul Ruidiaz is to the best start of his career. When we asked him about starting off with a brace, it's something that he's never done in his career. He's ready to go. He looked good. He looked dangerous. Christian Roldan was phenomenal in an internal midfielder position that demands everything from this kid, and he was great in link-up play, in his ability to get forward. Obviously, the relationship with his brother at wing back. I mean, everything just worked for Christian Roldan, and he's going to have a big season. If this is going to work, Christian Roldan has to have a big season, and he had a big game. Joao Paulo, he's all class, but Roldan doesn't run out of gas. I mean, it's literally something. He has a great supporting cast around him. So one of the things that are interesting this week is that Brian Schmetzer said that there's a possibility that Nicolas Lodeiro does travel to LAFC, to Los Angeles. If he is able to train in full on Friday, he said that to one of our colleagues here in Seattle at 950 KJR, Jackson Phelps. And that's always interesting because this team is going to be that much better with Nicolas Lodeiro and his ability to amplify everybody's game around him. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how it plays out.
Well, and one of the things that we've noticed in the past when these two teams have combined is that Seattle can be very physical against the Stars of LAFC. And, you know, if you want to use it, it's like they knock them off their game, and it's like they distract them. And LAFC hasn't quite figured out across the board, I don't think, how to respond to teams who are physical in nature against their stars. And I think that this gets that other opening that we're talking about with Seattle here, where if Seattle can continue to be physical and ride that edge and not get into silly cards and things like that. And I know that folks gravitate toward Nuhu when they first think about silly cards and things like that. But as long as Seattle can continue to be physical against LAFC, I think that would shine things in their direction as it has in the past.
Yeah, Seattle, and that's a great point. And Seattle does have to make sure they do that because when it comes to veteran play, they do beat out LAFC in that department. Will Bruin is a man's man. He's a veteran. He's a old sea dog, as we call it in Latin America. I mean, he knows the tricks. He knows what to do. You saw that beautiful turn he had in the last game to set up Raul Ruidiaz for one of the goals. You have a midfield that also, obviously, with Joao Paulo that has played Copa Libertadores. His wit, his field awareness, all of these things are going to come out. And yes, the ability to get them off their game will be very important. But I also think that what LAFC has for this game is also going to be interesting because Diego Rossi is a player that has given Seattle jitters in the past. He is extremely good at what he does, breaking down the teams, stretching them out. Obviously, his ability to finish as well. Uh, I don't think he's going to be ready for this game, so I think that's going to give Seattle an advantage, at least in that department. But it's going to be a great game. Be ready to see the best game possible from this back line. That's got to be important. This three-man back line has to be on point with LAFC. Carlos Bella will be trying to exploit those mistakes. Carlos Bella will be on a vengeance because he didn't get to play a whole game just now. And I know that Raul and Bella have mutual respect for each other, but they know that they're both competing for a golden boot. I spoke to Raul Ruiz prior to the season, and obviously two of the best scorers were not available last season for different reasons. Joseph Martinez for injury, Carlos Vela because of obviously the COVID-19 and his family and all of that. He wasn't really available. So he told us that he's really motivated to go against these guys and fight for that golden boot because last season he was one goal away from tying Diego Rossi for that golden boot in league play. So he wants that. So I think it's going to be very interesting how that plays out and how both teams come out and play and try to really get after each other.
Were there any other stories in week one around the league that jumped out to you?
Well, before we do go on into that, I do want the one last thing that I thought was interesting was Freddie Montero, guys. He scores once again. He is a player that is going to be productive on and off the bench, whether it's substituting Raul Ruiz. But you saw what he can do. I feel like he's become such a more complete player now that he's a little older in terms of link of play. Of course, he doesn't have that perhaps burst in speed, and he's not that killer in the final third as he was when he was first with the team. But his ability to read the game, to place other players into dangerous positions. I mean, he looked good, guys. So I did want to make sure to give him credit where credit is due. He's going to be an interesting player to watch this season. When it comes to other stories along the MLS opening week, I thought Montreal was great. I mean, I had them dead last in the East, and they just came out guns blazing. Kyoto looked like Usain Bolt coming at players. Victor Wayama obviously didn't have a great season last season. He has a great goal. I thought they were interesting. Watch out. I mean, because if they can build on this, it'll be interesting. Also, Vancouver, which was my underdog when we talked last week. And I thought they played well, strong. Lucas Cavallini with a good goal. Dahome had a goal taken back. So, like I said, I really think that Marc Dos Santos has something that will be interesting.
All right, so let's get into this weekend here a little bit, and with what we're looking at out west, you've got hey,
awesome.
That's great. That's great. You got some interesting matchups out west this weekend. Obviously, we've talked about Portland, and I mean you've talked about LAFC and Seattle. You've got Toronto and Vancouver playing in Florida. You've got San Jose hosting Dallas. You've got Minnesota hosting RSL, Colorado hosting Austin FC, and Portland hosting Houston with the Galaxy and the Red Bulls. When you look at the action that's attached to those Western Conference teams this weekend, what stands out to you there?
From the West Coast, Portland, Houston is interesting to me because Portland really came out and I know they wanted to do more. They're playing CCL play, so combining those two tournaments is always difficult. But I know that Giovanni Savarese, he wants to win. He wants to make sure that whatever tournament he's involved in, he is coming out up top. So I do think that this team's going to come out with everything and try to make a statement. Against a Houston team that was very good. Finally, Tab Ramos is able to spark some of that identity that he's been working on giving. No Darwin Quintero, but they were still able to be a very dangerous team. Urruti, obviously being that workhorse up top. I feel like he doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think he's a good fit down there. So I really like that matchup because you could really tell you more about where the West stands. We talked about those teams that could make things interesting in the West. Houston's one of those because over the last few seasons, they haven't been great. And you kind of expect them to be in the lower bottom of that standings in the West. But if they could put some things together, I mean, it'll be interesting. And Portland, quite the opposite. We were all huge on Portland and what they could do, and the Chara brothers and Mora. And all of a sudden, if they start to struggle, then it's going to really shift how things work in the West. So that's a really good one for me that I'm really looking forward to look at. And obviously, Minnesota. What's the reality of Minnesota? I mean, Juan Chope looked dangerous when he came on. Obviously, not in full fitness, but you could tell he has that killer, matador, goleador thinking process when he touches the ball. I thought he was interesting when he came on. And can Reynoso get off that inconsistency that he showed in Seattle? Because he just disappeared in the second half. So can he put it together? And can this Minnesota team be what we all think they can be? I had a lot of fans, Minnesota fans, reach out to me on Twitter and be like, "Never bet on Minnesota," that you should have known better. But I believe this team can do more than they did last season. You can write off a team on a one game, especially in the way that he played out in Seattle. I'm interested in seeing what Minnesota can do against Real Salt Lake.
I got one more for you, Nico, because I know you follow the South American game. The rumors out of Toronto and out of Brazil right now on Jefferson Soteldo potentially coming to Toronto as a designated player. I think right now they're talking in the $6 million range, which to me feels like a steal. I would take that number up a little bit if you have to. How do you think Soteldo would fit with the talent they have in Toronto already?
I think he would be good. He is definitely a nifty, dangerous player that can give you maybe another X factor up top. We all know that Jossie has issues with injuries, and giving another attacker would benefit Toronto. I do worry about Soltero's physicality.
Yeah,
that's something that's been questioned, obviously. And I'm not saying just because the guy is small. I mean, it's just something that is constantly looked at. Any time that I've spoken to attackers that come from South America, is that they get surprised of how physical the league is. And, that's a cliche perhaps, but it's something that's very real. When you come into this league and you see the physicality and the athleticism that these center backs have, these full backs have, it becomes a real tough process. So $6 million, to me, I would have to disagree. I know that I think he's a good player, but $6 million is high. And I only say that because I have at least 3 attackers for less money in my black book here that I'm following that are below that $6 million mark.
Oh, okay. So you got a black book. Can you divulge?
You can't ask him for the names in the black book, John. What are you doing? You know how this works.
That's right. He knows better.
Come on, man.
That people know about, and it's my map. I got a map to try to figure out where players are coming in, because that's what the transfer window is about, is creating a network. And a lot like crab fishing, you throw the cages, and every other day I'll call and I'll pull those out and see if I get any rumors or any catches. So yes, my black book is more in terms of players that I'm following, and South America is full of talent, guys.
Yeah.
And so yes, I think $6 million is a little steep in my perspective.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting. It's always interesting to see players like Soltero getting into the league. Especially, is this going to be like the South American Jovinko? I mean, I don't know. He's going to be the new what, Explosive Ant? What was the nickname?
The Atomic Ant.
Atomic Ant, yeah.
Yeah. So the South American Atomic Ant, perhaps. Super Raton. I don't know.
Could be a fit. Niko, what do you have coming up on all the outlets that you're writing for? What you got working on? What are you working on right now?
Today, I'm putting out the 3 things we learned about the Sounders. Obviously, Brian Smetzer silencing the critics. That regardless of whether it's week 1 or not, the future looks bright for this team. And of course, Joe Paulo being class, but Christian Roldan being the real phenomenal player and what he can do. So that's one of them coming out in Pulso Sports. I'm also looking to do a Twitter space with a lot of my fellow colleagues in Seattle. We've decided that we want to try it out. So
very cool.
Sometime between today and tomorrow, trying to get all these guys in the same page to do a good Twitter space. We want to dabble with that. So follow me at El Rolo NW. We're going to be doing that with perhaps Jeremiah Ocean, Mickey Turner, Jackson Feltz. We'd love to get Brad Evans on. So we'll see. That's something else that we're working on. And that's really about it. I got some things in the plans for the weekend, but I will let you guys know maybe the next time I'm on here. So if it's already ready to go, I'll let you guys know what it is.
Well, hopefully we will see you next week. I love having you on with us. People love to hear the Western Conference perspective, the Seattle perspective because they're one of the leading clubs in the league, but also the whole West. As we get, I think in this league at times we get kind of East Coast centric or West Coast centric. It's cool to cross the streams a little bit and get some interaction going. So, Niko, thanks for taking the time early for us.
I appreciate that. I really do. I think that's huge, and it's something that we need to do more of, see different perspectives and get everybody involved. And yes, sometimes things are a little bit east-sided. So I appreciate the work you guys do. Thank you again, and we'll see you guys next week.
Appreciate all you do, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Niko.
Be good, Niko.
Niko Moreno, El Rolo NW on social media. Make sure you are following him for all the latest out of Seattle. John, don't ask about what somebody's got in their black book, man.
Can I get the catalog maybe?
No, you can't ask these things. We'll get you up to speed on this stuff eventually. You'll learn, but man, you can get yourself in trouble with that. You're going to get yourself in big trouble with that.
If you don't get the answer.
No, and sometimes when you ask, you get popped in the mouth. You still might not get the answer, and you might have a black eye and a bloody lip.
Well, then that might be the answer then. It's just the black eye or getting popped. That might be the answer.
It's not the answer you were looking for, but it's
obviously
something.
Not.
Yeah, so you got to learn these things, man. Can't take you anywhere. You can't get me in trouble. I'm going to get popped in the eye, and I didn't even ask the question.
Well, no, all you got to do is point in a different direction. You sit there and go, "No, dude, what?"
I gotta, I gotta be careful about these things now. I might have to block you from these. Get me in trouble, man. Craziness. All right, just a couple minutes. We're going to have our USL Championship weekly check-in. This is going to be. Thursdays will be USL Championship. It'll kind of float in the time frame of the show. Thursdays, a lot of weeks it is going to be a 2-hour show. A little different because of my schedule today, so we're going to go just a little bit longer. You're going to hear from Conner Antley of the Tampa Bay Rowdies here in just a minute. We will preview a week in USL Championship. We'll kind of lay the groundwork for what the campaign is in the USL Championship as we've got some reshuffling of the decks, and we'll get into all of that. But final call for questions before that on Twitter and on Twitch. Do we have any on Twitter we need to address, John?
Let's see. I mean, it's stuff that we talked about in the first hour. Folks are chiming in on that. Tafka says the amount of arguments that he's had about closed leagues in MLS this week is more than ever. Some are ridiculous, some are more measured, but people's expectations are still unfair. I don't think USL even wants to try pro rel with MLS yet.
No, USL can't have pro rel with MLS yet. USL isn't doing pro rel in their own leagues yet in the second and third divisions. That's the part that they can control. It's just different sporting cultures. If you're in Europe and you look at it like, oh, MLS is stupid because they don't have this, you're not understanding the full picture. If you're in the U.S. and you're looking at the European situation and you're saying, well, they're stupid because they didn't do the Super League. No, you don't understand the full picture. It's you move into a new neighborhood, you need to understand the lay of the land. And if you're talking about American soccer, you do need to understand the full picture. You can't just show up and say, this is wrong. Well, how did it get to this? Doesn't matter, it's wrong. Well, no, it does matter. Because that's what matters in Europe. Why you can't just say, do an NFL-style league across the continent and that'll be fine. No, because how did you get to where you are? You have to understand that in solving the problems. So both sides all over need to look at this and figure out the best ways forward for their own areas. Because what works in the United States won't work in England and vice versa.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and the topic that we were getting into about the generational differences in following clubs, Tafka says it's not youth's fault that interest in clubs is waning. Clubs in general, in his opinion, have gotten away from trying to connect with youth and local fans. They're run like multinational corporations. It's all about mega branding. Atlanta United did well to build local and grow national. He says you don't have to own shares of a club to feel like you own a piece of the club, that the club belongs to you. Atlanta accomplished this really well. He doubts the same can be said for most major clubs around the world.
I think that's a huge bit of speculation to say that most clubs around the world aren't doing what Atlanta United did. I don't think that's fair at all. Atlanta's also won early on, too, and that helps with bridging that gap. It just is. It gets your attention. Atlanta United's done a great job of getting into the community and tapping into a community and building community, and that's all part of it. But Bolton does a good job of that. Wimbledon does a good job of that. Valencia does a good job of that. Those things are real. What took Atlanta over the top was you hadn't had it before at this level. You did. You had a team that won straight out of the gate. That's huge. When the team isn't winning, you see the long-term effects of that, as we saw at Bolton, as we saw at others. That's where you get into that situation of, in MLS, you can finish in third in the conference but go on and win the title, and that's a big deal. Whereas if you are Bolton, it got to the point that you knew you weren't going to win anything, and you knew you weren't going to participate in any European competition. And then if you're not doing the great work in building the community, you can suffer. Winning is a huge part of it. And winning takes resources, and winning takes spending, and then that gets back to the other conversation. And it's all intertwined. You can't leave any part of it out when you have this conversation. Atlanta did a great job launching. Now they have to maintain the community. And that's, in some ways, harder than getting people to check you out in the first place, is the maintenance of it. And it's an ongoing thing. It's something you always have to think about. And you always have to figure out how to do it. But I do think the culture's changing in terms of what the next generation wants out of sports. I don't think they are as committed to one team. That's it. I don't follow any other teams. I think they bounce around, maybe outside of their local team. Maybe it's the local team and somebody else, and that somebody else might change 10 times in their lifetime because of players that they like. That's just a different way of consuming things. And, that ship is sailing. Got to make sure you know where it's going.
And you talk about consumption. The Falcoholic is in, and he says he loves the idea of set days for MLS primetime matches. And he's thinking Wednesday nights, you could start with your pregame at like 8:30 for a 9:10, which would get you through the primetime lineup for Central and West time zone games. That way you kind of push it a little bit. Friday night, 7:30 pregame, 10:35 for the doubleheaders. Saturday and Sundays, 2:30 pregame and a kick at 3:10, which will get you through the afternoon. So that was what Mr. Green was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you settle on, just give me consistency and let it build for a few years. Don't say, oh, no, it didn't work 6 weeks in, let's change it. No, Give me consistency for a few years so those times get embedded into your mind like the NFL times are, like the Bundesliga times are, like the England kickoffs are.
Two more to catch us up on Twitter. Apparently, Toronto FC has announced that they're going to expand BMO to north of 40,000 to host 2026 World Cup matches.
That's been their for a long time. I think they just finalized it because that's the only way they can host World Cup matches. It has to be bigger. Yeah. I saw the question in the Twitch pitch earlier about, well, can they fill it? Every time they've bumped it, they've filled it. So, yeah, there's a hungry audience for it. And Toronto's a very good sports town. They continue to keep that team as one of the best in the Eastern Conference, best in the league. They'll absolutely fill that place. And they've shown no lack of being willing to spend. And the Soteldo rumors, go right along with that. So I don't see any reason that would be an issue. But if they want to host World Cup games, they have to expand it. There's no way around it. It's too small.
Yeah. And one question into the Premier League. Will is asking, what about Graham Potter at Spurs?
You've been really down on Brighton. What do you think?
I don't think that if with the resources that Graham Potter has been given at Brighton, Neil Maupay has only been able to get you so far. I mean, I'd like to see what Graham Potter can do with more resources, but I don't see it. I'm not all that comfortable with it. Potter was listed as one of those 20-to-1s by Betfair that we were getting into yesterday. I think that there are people who are far better for the job than Graham Potter.
Maurizio Sarri.
Yes.
Do it, Spurs. Don't be afraid of the man who probably needs some Nicorette gum. Yes. You might need to get that sponsorship done, Daniel Levy, but go get Maurizio Sarri. It was being talked about by Calcio Mercato again because it sounds like there's frequent contacts between Spurs and Sarri's entourage. He does want to go back to the Premier League at some point. Right now, Sarri is looking more at Roma, who have Paulo Fonseca sitting by the exit door, but it's not done yet. There are some maybe fan issues with Tottenham because I think they're all angry in general about the Super League, although Tottenham was trying to grab that ride and take it as far as they could because it was what they needed. I think their fans maybe understood that more than some other clubs, but if Spurs fans don't want Sarri because he was at Chelsea for a year, they're missing out. They should want him because of that, because of how Chelsea treated it.
Exactly.
Graham Potter's a good coach. There's other good coaches in the league. Maurizio Sarri would be the best one they could get if they commit to letting him build something. Let him do what he did at Napoli. Let him get the players that he wants. Because he's not looking to go buy, Gareth Bales. He's looking to buy players that fit the way he wants to play. Let him do it. That's going to be cost effective for you. Give him time. Tottenham's the perfect club for him. I think he's the perfect hire. I really, really do. If you can't get him, and I don't think you have any chance of getting Nagelsmann. I don't think you're going to get Max Allegri. I don't think he plays the style that they need. You're not getting Brendan Rodgers. He'd be crazy to leave Leicester. That's where you then start to talk about a Potter or a Scott Parker to me. And I don't know if I would take Potter over Parker. I haven't made that decision yet. Between those two, I don't know which one I would go for. But I think you've got to exhaust your opportunities for a bigger name first. And Sarri would be the guy for me, no question.
Absolutely. And the reason, even just on the underlying reason that we're talking about, because you could thumb your nose at Chelsea and get under their skin, in addition to him being a good coach and a builder, that intangible of getting under Chelsea fans' skin with the guy on the touchline, I think that would be choice, as they say.
Yeah, it'd be huge. Okay, let's get into some USL Championship. The American Second Division. Have we had any games yet, or is this the first full weekend? I know USL League One, we had a couple games sneak in. I think this is the first weekend period.
Yeah, it's the first weekend period. First full weekend, I think, is May 7th and 8th.
Okay.
And you were given the option of, drifting in if you wanted to. And as I'm sitting here racing to check the schedule real quick and see what it looks like as we're getting into the decisions here. Yep, two on Saturday, with Louisville hosting the Twos and Oklahoma City Energy at Taft hosting FC Tulsa.
The first games for USL Championship this weekend.
First games of the season are this weekend with those two.
All right, let's get into some USL Championship weekly action, recap, preview, etc. right now.
All 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119
Welcome to our look at the USL Championship here at Soccer Down Here. And in addition to letting you know what has happened in the offseason, what will be happening this weekend and the weekends to come when it comes to action on and off the pitch, time to catch up with folks who are a part of the game. And our first guest this season comes to us from the Tampa Bay Rowdies via Indy 11, via South Georgia Tormenta. It's time to catch up with one of the defenders, one of the guys at the back line for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, Conner Antley. Conner Antley now with us as our first interview for our USL Championship coverage this year. Conner, welcome back to SDH.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me again. It's glad to be back.
All right, so Tampa, and this happened right at the end of the 2020 calendar year. How did this go down with the Rowdies? How did you end up down there?
Yeah, so when my agent and I found out that I was not going to be back in Indy for 2021, we had a couple clubs the very next day kind of reach out to us and express interest, and Tampa was one of those clubs. So when I had heard that Tampa was interested, I was excited about that because I had known Neil from before. Neil tried to recruit me before I had committed to Indy 11. And so I had conversations with
John,
him before.
I don't have any of our audio.
And so he reached out again.
Media source.
I was willing to trade into warmer weather from that cold Indiana.
The board is not up. It's just the media
so I was
source.
Excited about
you
it.
Can't hear
my
it.
Wife, and
Never mind.
It was a good fit for us, and here we are.
How difficult was it for you as a professional athlete in the 2020 season?
Wow. So 2020, there was a lot of stuff going on the field and off the field. My wife and I had our first child in 2020. So in August, like in the middle of this, whole thing going on, I had that going on as well. But from an athlete perspective, it was difficult. It was tough. I think staying disciplined with your workouts, staying disciplined in a routine, because it's so easy to, when you're not training, every single day, and you're not having like these responsibilities like film meetings and going to gym and stuff like that, you can start to get kind of lazy sleeping in. So I think staying strict on a routine was really important, something that I try to do. But it was something that I think the whole team, I think the whole league, everyone was, trying to figure out, because it was new for everyone. But when we were finally able to get back into the swing of things and start playing games again, we were ready for that. We had worked really hard, especially up in Indy, trying to do a lot of workouts and do as much as we could individually. And then when we were able to get into small groups, train as much as we could so that we could be physically prepared for this very short season, that we were going to have. And we found out it was going to be like 16 games in a short amount of time. So that was something else to kind of wrap your head around a little bit, was that, we were going to be playing, 16 games in a small period of time. So it was difficult, but I think that, being able to get back on the field and play and compete, made it all worth it during quarantine, and made it worth the while for us to, all the time we had to wait. So it was very difficult, but, we all had to navigate it in our own way. And I think, majority of the clubs and majority of the players, did a really good job of that. And so I think I can speak for everyone when I say we're glad to have all of that in the past and hopefully move on to a much more kind of normal season here in 2021, where we've got, more games and, over a longer period of time. So yeah, we're excited to get going this year.
From your time at Tormenta to your time in Indy to your time in Tampa, how do you think your game has grown over the last handful of years?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think when I was, because I started with Tormenta even back in the PDL days. So I think even from then, I think at Tormenta I started to kind of realize like how, good I guess I could be, if I worked hard and I was disciplined and I listened to my coaches. I started to realize that, maybe I can, make the jump and play at the next level and do the same thing. So, when I got that opportunity to do that in Indy, I went to Indy and I had the chance to learn under some really great players, actually. Iose is up there. Carl Hayworth is up there. A lot of older, more veteran guys. I was able to kind of take a backseat in a way. Even though I did, get into a lot of games in Indy, I was able to kind of take a backseat and learn from those players. And I think I grew mentally a lot while I was in Indy. Learning from these guys that have been in the league for 8, 9, 10 years and have been playing there. So, I enjoyed my time there a lot. I really enjoyed the team. The coaching staff was great. But I think, it's only been, I've only been down here in Tampa for like 3.5 months. But I would say I think this is by far probably challenged me the most being here in these 3.5 months because Neil Collins down here is the head coach at Tampa, and he does a phenomenal job, I think, finding the perfect balance of pushing players to their best, but also making sure that they feel comfortable with where they're at. And I think I've grown as a player down here, a lot. I think, that was one thing Neil and I spoke about before I committed to Tampa was that I said, look, I just want you to push me. I was like, I want you to make me a better player. That's all I can ask. And I think he's done that without a doubt. So I think from, when I think back to Tormenta and playing in Statesboro, I think my mentality has changed like a little bit. I thought of it back then, playing with some of my buddies like Marco Micheletto and Mikey Rowe. Like it was just, playing with friends, and enjoying it. We would go out, and I still enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, but it was, it was more of just like a fun environment, I think. And then, as I moved to Indy and being here in Tampa, I've realized it's a lot more serious, and it's a lot more competitive and really, really challenging every single day. So I think that the intensity and the competitiveness is just different. If you get into the championship, I think that guys here are experienced and they're good players, and you're not just gonna, walk over anyone. So it's been a journey. But I'm thrilled with where I'm at and excited for this 2021 season.
And you're also a part of a backline that includes guys like Max Lakawecki and and Jordan Scarlett, and someone who's a couple of inches taller than pretty much every human being known to mankind in Forrest Lasso. So there's a lot of experience there that you can learn from to help continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are, every player you just named are incredible defenders, incredible players. I was having a conversation with Forrest the other night, and I just looked at him and I was like, man, how are you not playing in MLS? Because, he's not only just an incredible player, I think he's an incredible leader. The guy, his intensity, he communicates so well. The energy that he brings every single day, even in training, is contagious. And it's the reason why, Tampa, conceded the least amount of goals last year. So huge. I mean, Jordan Scarlett, Aaron Gillen, both of them, incredible players, and I'm excited to learn under all of them and get my shot when I can. But they, I've been blessed to be surrounded by such talented players.
Conner Antley hanging out with us this time with the Tampa Bay Rowdies Conner Antley version that we're catching up with here on SDH for another couple of minutes. What do you think you need to continue to improve on? What's part of the dossier that you need to work on to continue to grow and evolve as a player?
Yeah, good question. I think one thing I really love and respect about Neil Collins down here is that he's taken the time to really sit down with me individually one-on-one and talk to me about my game and talk to me about what he thinks I do really well and some things that he thinks I struggle with. And we've talked about those things, and he showed me, clips and film of where I can improve in these areas. And I think that what I've done is I've gone into training sessions now with, that mentally in the back of my mind and thinking, okay, look, this is what we talked about. This is what I need to improve on. And this is what I need to do. I think becoming better in tight spaces for me is something that I need to improve on. I think, sometimes I try to force passes maybe into the midfield. And I think Neil and I spoke about, as a defender, just making that simple pass left and right sometimes is what it takes to move a team. We talked about sometimes it's not about just moving the ball. quickly. It's about moving the team, moving players, moving the opposition so that you can open up spaces on other sides of the field. So I think playing simple, becoming better in tight spaces are two things that Neil and I have talked about that I can improve on this year. And then something else that we've talked about that I think that I can really improve on is my communication. I'm coming into a group of players, I'll use Forrest Lasso for an example, that for 90 minutes in a game, this man is shouting, communicating, giving instruction, talking, and that comes from every player on the back line. It needs to come from every player on the back line. So I think it's really important that I improve on that moving forward into this 2021 season, and then thereafter. And then once I tackle those things, I'm sure Neil and I will meet again and talk about a few more things that I can improve on.
Are you a naturally quiet individual at the back, or is it an intensity? Because I mean this in deference to how Forrest is always talking over a 90-minute period. But I mean, do you have to sit there and consciously think about communicating more than you normally would because of how you've been growing to this point? I'm trying to figure out, okay, my mindset is X, I have to change it to get to Y, and how does that integrate with you?
Yeah, I think what I've learned from Forrest and Neil, because Neil was a center back as well, is that communication will come more naturally when I become more integrated into the system. This is a new system for me as well, kind of down here. Indy plays a 3-5-2 as well, and we play a 3-5-2 down here in Tampa, but they are two very different 3-5-2 systems in the way that Neil likes to play and the way that Martin likes to play in Indy. But I think from a communication standpoint, and I had a conversation with my wife about this the other night. It was about, like, sometimes I feel like when Forrest is speaking, communicating, he does it so well, it almost makes it seem like the other guys on the team don't need to necessarily communicate that much because he's doing it, he's instructing, he's doing it so well. But that's not the case at all. It needs to be instruction coming from every position at every time. So I think for me, the more I become comfortable in the system, the more I become comfortable with my new teammates that, I've just, only been here with like 2-3 months with, the more I'll be able to know what their instincts are and know how to communicate to them better. So I think that's something I'm improving on. I mean, that was something that this past week specifically in training that I think I really improved on. And Neil and I actually spoke about it today, that he felt like my instruction and communication and training has been much more intense and very and forward. So he appreciated that, and it's something that I'm going to continue to work on.
4 games at home to start the season. You're a week and a half away from getting your season started as Charlotte comes to town. How itchy are the guys to tackle somebody else other than themselves?
Yeah. 4 games at home to start the season is huge, and I know that Neil is expecting no less than 12 points to start the season. The guys on this team I'm getting chill bumps right now just talking about it, because I know the guys on the team are itching to get on the field and play another team. And honestly, Charlotte Independence is who we play first, and we're I'm sorry, but we're going to come out flying, and they're going to know that they've got a tough 90 minutes ahead of them from the first 5 minutes of the game. So the guys are pumped. The guys are itching. We've got one more preseason game left to kind of work on a little bit of details, and then we got Charlotte Independence to start the season, and we are very, very excited.
Who is the best soccer-playing Antley in the family currently in USL, and why is it Conner and not Ian in Richmond?
Why is it me and not Ian? I think I think Ian is a very good player. I think Ian and I we play very similar in some aspects of the game, and we're different in others. Ian's got, a lot of growing to do, just like I do. But he is no less competitive in any way than I am. He's very jealous of my current situation, though, right now, being down here in Tampa, because I FaceTime him every day and the sun is shining and it's 85 degrees. So he definitely wishes he was down here, but I know he's enjoying his time in Richmond, and he's got a big season ahead of him. So
how good of an uncle is he?
Yeah, he's very good. Actually, he's very good. And we have another brother as well who has a baby girl, and Ian is an unbelievable uncle. He FaceTimes us like actually every day, really, to see our little baby girl and talk to her. He's really, really good with kids, and he just got recently engaged. So him and his fiance will be getting married at the beginning of next year, and so yeah.
The pride of Sharpsburg, Georgia, East Coweta High School, Tormenta, Indy, and now Tampa. Conner, it's always great to catch up with you, and good luck this season. Obviously, we'll be keeping an eye. Thanks for unveiling our coverage here and being the debut segment here for our coverage of the USL Championship here on SDH. Thanks for being a part. We'll be keeping an eye. We'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Conner Antley, thank you so much for taking the time talking to John yesterday. I like Conner a lot, even though he went to East Coweta. We had some issues with East Coweta when I played at Eagles Landing, but I'll push that to the side. Great insight from Conner on some of the differences between Indy and Tampa Bay and everything that he is seeing in his early days with the Rowdies. We started with a representative from the Tampa Bay Rowdies because they were one of the two teams that were supposed to play the USL Championship final. It didn't get played, if you forgot, going back to 2020. You had Tampa Bay players and staff who tested positive for COVID the day before the match. It was canceled. Phoenix Rising and Tampa Bay were recognized as conference champions. There was not a league champion. It just didn't work timing-wise. And you had a lot of different things in play at that time. It was a different conversation than USL League One, where you didn't get the final played, but you had a regular season champion that you could award the league title to. So Tampa Bay won the Eastern Conference. Phoenix won the Western Conference. We're going to dig a little bit more into the Eastern side of things, but just so you know the landscape out west, the Mountain Division this year, Austin Bold, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, El Paso Locomotive, New Mexico United, Real Monarchs, Rio Grande Valley, and San Antonio. In the Pacific Division, it's LA Galaxy 2, Las Vegas Lights, Oakland Roots, who are new to the championship this year, Orange County, Phoenix Rising, Sacramento Republic, San Diego Loyal, and the Tacoma Defiance. Now let's look at the East, and we'll start in the Atlantic where Tampa's based. Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Red Bulls 2, the Miami FC, Loudoun United, Hartford Athletic, Charlotte Independence, and our old friends, the Charleston Battery. So a lot of teams we've seen with Atlanta United 2 over the years are now in a separate division. Tampa Bay's got to be the favorite to win the Atlantic, but who else are you looking at, John?
Obviously, looking at Charleston with another year of experience that a lot of their firepower have. I know that there are some issues in bringing I think there's still the issues with Leland Archer and trying to get him back to full song with his time that they wanted to try him to get at Hibbs, Robbie Crawford as well. Looking at there, you can't discount Pittsburgh with their defense. And as we always say, last time I checked, if people ain't scoring against you, you've got a chance of getting out of there with at least a point. The Miami FC, that they're not afraid to spend money in a USL Championship sense to bring in firepower that has the more experience than younger clubs there as well. Loudoun, obviously, with what DC United is building, not necessarily looking at them a whole lot, but I am looking forward to seeing their younger talent and seeing it grow and evolve over the year. Hartford, another one of those teams that, you don't know what you're going to get with Hartford sometimes. Are you going to get the one that's going to put four in the back of the net, or are you going to get the one that puts up a clunker? So Hartford, for me, is always going to be a question mark. And Charlotte, Charlotte, I think, is going to be another one of those teams it's going to be a pain in a lot of folks' sides. But for me, looking at the Atlantic, it's Charleston, Pittsburgh, Tampa, and the Miami FC as a part of the discussion, hanging around that 4 spot of the 8.
Yeah, I think the Miami FC will be better this year. They were really up and down last year. That's a club that expects to win things, and they weren't good enough last year. So what does it look like in 2021? I think they'll be a different animal here in the division. And I'm going to keep an eye on the Charlotte Independents as well. You're 1 year out from Charlotte FC launching an MLS. I do want to see what the Independents look like at the newly refurbished Memorial Stadium. Is that a place that they can be long-term? Is this a club with long-term viability? And we know there's questions about the ownership situation and what things are going to look like long-term in Charlotte. I've always said I do think that you can have an MLS team and a USL team in a market. I think you can make it work. The USL team has to be really specific with its branding and its appeal. It's on them, I think, to get it right in that regard, to find their niche, and they can absolutely do it because there's people who want to see live soccer more than 17, 18 times a year. There's people who will go see your product. If it's a good product and they enjoy the experience, they're going to come back. Can the Independents create that kind of experience at the new Memorial Stadium, newly refurbished Memorial Stadium anyway? We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. Let's get into the Central, where Atlanta United 2 will be based this year. Birmingham Legion, Indy 11, Louisville City, Memphis 901, OKC Energy, Sporting Kansas City 2, and FC Tulsa. That's who Atlanta United 2 will be facing. They'll have some longer trips this year, but you'll also see some teams that we just haven't seen in Atlanta to face the twos, especially with OKC Energy, Sporting Kansas City 2, FC Tulsa. What clubs jump out to you in Atlanta United 2's division?
Well, obviously, Lou City. I think every year in their history, if memory serves, they have made it to the postseason, and they've made deep runs each and every time. So I know that heading into this weekend, Lou City is making a push to try to make this one of the larger, if not the largest crowd that they've had at Lynn Family. So it will be a hostile environment for Atlanta United 2 as they head to Lou City. So obviously, I'm looking at Lou City. You can't discount what we've seen in Birmingham over the last handful of years, but really for me, I also look at what we're seeing at Indy 11 with their continued build. They've added A.J. Cochran in the offseason. And when you've got a back line that involves A.J. Cochran, Carl Ouimet, who we know from his time all the way back with the Ottawa Fury, and he's been one of the stabilizers for any team that he's been a part of at the back. And then they've got Neville Hackshaw also at the back for Indy 11 as well. No Tyler Patcher, no Evan Newton, and obviously no Conner Antley for Indy, but I think that it's going to be Louisville and Indy for me. That's going to be really the two of the top teams that I'm going to focus on, outside of obviously what we're thinking and how Atlanta United 2, with how they translate into things with Gabriel Heinze and his system working its way down. So I'm looking at Birmingham, Indy, Louisville. Does Memphis turn things around this year? That's another question that I have. And seeing the new guys, I know that we look at Sporting Kansas City too as a second team, and they have a bit of a rough go at it when it comes to their life in USL Championship. Is it any different in a new division? And then obviously with OKC and FC Tulsa, I want to see how they integrate into this division as well. But for me, it's Indy, it's Louisville, it's Atlanta United too, and then looking at it with Birmingham from there.
So everybody, basically.
Basically everybody, but for different reasons.
That's really narrowing it down, John.
I know, but my top really, if you're looking
at
the
top
8, half, it's Louisville, it's Indy, and it's Atlanta United too. Those are the three that I would have toward the top.
Why Atlanta United too? Because look, we got to be real here, John. Like, their goal is not to make the playoffs. Their goal is to develop players, and that's always going to come first. I think they can. I think you want to develop players good enough to qualify for the playoffs. I think it's possible here. Louisville is the class of the division, in my opinion. They'd been to they'd won the Eastern Conference 3 straight times. They lost it last year to Tampa, so didn't get that 4th straight in a row. They've been to the playoffs every year. They commit a lot of resources to it. Indy had a bunch of injuries late last season and missed the postseason. They should be better. I don't know about Memphis and Birmingham yet. I think both were disappointing. I think both have questions about what they're doing and what they're building, and are they going to be able to compete? And OKC and Tulsa, we don't really know as well yet because we're going to have to wait and see them a little bit. That's a great rivalry between the two of them, so it'll be cool to have that in the division. But Tulsa feels like a team that is starting to put things together to get into that next group of the elite in the USL Championship. They're not there yet. Can they make that jump this year? And then you look at the playoff spots, and I wanted to touch on this the way it's going to work. 4 from each division go into the postseason. 4 teams go in. So 4 of 8 go in here in this division. I've got Louisville as one.
Yeah.
I think Indy will be another.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I don't really know. Memphis and Birmingham, I'm not convinced yet.
Mm-mm.
OKC, I need to see it. They've been there before. Are they going to do it again? Tulsa should be. I'll pencil them in now. And I think the 4th spot's up for grabs because you've got 2 teams in Atlanta and Sporting who are second teams, who are going to be fielding young teams that are going to be learning on the fly. You know, they're reserve teams. They're, attached to the academy. So it's going to be, as we've seen, a lot of young players getting professional debuts. Both clubs, though, now have had young players getting minutes in USL Championship that it won't be a shock to the system for them to face these types of situations. I think one of them will get the other playoff spot. I'm going to need to see Birmingham and Memphis more before I put them into that conversation. Same with OKC. I need to see them prove it before I think they get it. I think it's Atlanta or Sporting gunning for that other playoff spot, assuming Louisville is what we expect, Indy doesn't have the issues they had last year, and Tulsa continues to develop.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the Oklahoma teams and with Sporting, and Memphis for me. Memphis was erratic last season at best, and you don't know what you're going to be getting. I mean, Memphis could show you a tremendous amount of offense, but at the same time, they could give up 4 or 5 goals in a match. And I just, with that much uncertainty with Memphis, I did not have them as a part of the playoff discussion there. So, no, I'm with you in the layout. I think that 4th spot is going to be the one that you're going to have a couple of teams shooting for in that 8-team division.
Yeah, Tulsa, it was a question from Burned on the Twitch pitch is, do any of these teams play a more interesting style? Because you see a lot of teams in the 2nd division do what we've seen from Tampa and be pretty vertical and pretty direct. I think Tampa has some guys like Leo Fernandez and Sebastian Guinzati who can play when the play breaks down and they get the 1v1. They're very good technical players. Those are 2 guys that I've always enjoyed in this league. Louisville, pretty direct. Indy, not as direct as Tampa, but fairly direct. You saw them try to do something different when they brought in Andrew Carlton on loan last year. They wanted a playmaker, and I think it worked for a while, but then they had injuries, and now they don't have Tyler Pasher. So, Indy does still have some questions, but I think they're a team with a good number of resources. They should be good. Tulsa is a team that my understanding is they try to play. Now, they've been out west. We haven't really seen them. I don't know them super well. But you look at the roster, and they added Madu Jadama, who was here in Atlanta, center back. Really good last year here, I thought. They've added Jorge Corrales, who helped them in a playoff run in 2017. He's back. Joaquin Rivas from El Salvador, a creator. He can score. The guy that I think will do really well for Tulsa and put them in a playoff spot. He did it for El Paso before he went to Miami last year, Jerome Kiesewetter.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those guys like Forrest Lasso who is a borderline USL Championship MLS guy. And maybe, for an attacker especially, it's hard to get those opportunities because MLS teams are going to go for the bigger names. That's where they're going to spend. I think Lasso would have another shot in MLS before Kiesewetter would. But he's very good at this level, and he will score goals for Tulsa. So I think Tulsa will be that other playoff team. Then it's a crapshoot. We'll know a little bit more about Atlanta over the coming days. Later today, I'm going to have a chance to talk with a couple of guys for an Atlanta United 2 preview that will drop over the next couple of days before their opener on Saturday night. Unfortunately, if you're going to be at the game for the first team or watching the game, you're going to have to watch the 2s either on a second screen or after the fact. They'll be in Louisville with a 7:30 kickoff. I will be watching that either late night on Saturday or Sunday morning to get caught up on how the Twos do in Louisville. I'll be keeping an eye on the score and updates out of Louisville while we're on with Atlanta and Chicago. But we're going to hear from, who do we have? Philip Goodrum, and we're going to hear from Robbie Mertz, who is new to Atlanta United 2 this year. So that'll be in a preview Atlanta United 2 edition of the podcast that'll be out tomorrow. This little version right here that is going to be part of our Thursday live shows in the mornings will be a separate pod as well. If there are teams, if there are stories around the league you guys want us to cover, give us a heads up. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Tweet at John at OSG Nelson. He's going to be pounding the pavement, getting these interviews, knocking them out. If there's things about the league you want to hear more about, please let us know so we can get that story out there for you. USL League One, same thing. That's going to be on Tuesdays, part of the live Tuesday morning show, but will also be released as a standalone pod for people who can't check out the whole live morning show because they go sometimes for 2.5 or 3 hours or more. It happens. But we're going to be talking more about the lower divisions because this is where the grassroots, I think, really start to bloom in markets like Tulsa. In markets like Memphis and Birmingham, who on the field I've got questions. Off the field, I think they're both great soccer markets. What Charlotte can do this year ahead of the MLS launch next year, and it's not attached to it. How's that going to look? I'm really curious. Tampa Bay, can they continue to grow? A heritage brand. They're owned by the Tampa Bay Rays, a Major League Baseball team. Stable. Can they continue to grow and be a club that we need to pay more attention to? Can all of these clubs develop talent as well? And can Louisville City, a club that we'll see a good bit this season, can they continue to grow into a potential first division kind of team? Can they make that step? We're going to find out a lot this year in the new division for Atlanta United 2, but I think we're going to learn a lot about the league as a whole and where the second division level is in the United States this season with USL Championship.
32 game schedule, 31 teams that are here, and remember, it's the top four. The Atlantic and the Central, they're off to one side. Mountain and the Western, they're off to the other side. You won't have any interaction in a postseason sense until the final game. So it's going to be the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 from the Atlantic and the Central going at each other in the postseason on one side, Mountain and the Western on the other, and then they'll integrate for a championship game. It's going to be a fun year, and it's going to be like, and as you say, if there's any story that we're missing that you want us to track down, let us know. That's what these segments are for, and it's going to be fun to chase after these stories all season long.
We'll hopefully have some members of the USL front office here in the coming weeks to kind of give us a lay of the land as well on the field and off going into a 2021 season. But that is this week's USL Championship Weekly. I feel like maybe that's a 9 Inch Nails outtake, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who that was, but yeah, I think 9 Inch Nails, you're right there. Either that or the People's Court. That was what I was.
Oh, could be that too. Yeah, it could be that too. Final questions on SDH this morning. If you have them, throw them in the Twitch pitch. If you have them, tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you're thinking. Matt Wagner asked, when is media availability with Atlanta United? Today at 1:30. So have your Twitter ears on as everybody frantically types quotes and paraphrasing and drops the knowledge. But 1:30 is when folks are speaking to the media today on the first team side. Ricky asks, what players from the first team do you have going to Louisville this weekend? I wish I could answer that. I just don't know what the back and forth is going to look like at this point because we don't know those protocols. Last year, that was an issue. Assuming it's not an issue, we know Efrain Morales because he's going to be with the Twos this season. Campbell would be a strong possibility. Gurr would be a strong possibility. Wolf would be a possibility, maybe less of a strong possibility for me. You do have to remember, too, that this is a week where maybe you see some rotation with the first team because of the Tuesday CONCACAF Champions League game. So maybe not quite as many as you would have seen. Jackson Conway, Matt says, is another good one. Yeah, he could definitely make that trip over. I wonder if, and I don't know what his timeline is yet, somebody like Mo Adams, when he is getting back up to speed after his hernia surgery and ready to play games but not ready to integrate into the first team, could he be somebody that gets some time with the twos as he's building back his fitness? Would make a lot of sense. We've seen that happen in the past. Bauer is a possibility, 4Card says. Hosetu, who is right now on loan with the twos while his green card situation gets sorted out, he could be possible. I don't think we're going to get like a lot of updates ahead of time on the twos and who's going with the reserve team, because I do get the feeling it's going to be treated more as a not extension just of the academy, but more as a reserve team like we see in South America, where that decision could be made Thursday or Friday even in some situations when both teams are at home of, this is what my 20 or 23 is going to be to factor in with the first team. This is who's left. This is who can go play for the second team. I get the sense that they're all going to be training together a lot in a larger group than we've seen in the past.
And also signing of a guy that you really liked in the draft that Atlanta United picked up, Aiden McFadden, was made official the other day too.
Yeah, I think guys like that, it's a weird system that we have here with the draft and who can jump in where and how players get scouted and identified. You're always going to find diamonds in the rough in the draft for probably another decade, to be perfectly honest. Guys who, for whatever reason, just weren't in the right part of the country to get noticed. Were a late bloomer, found the right system in college that unlocked the way they play. There's so many different elements. Like, there's no system that's perfect to find every piece of talent. People fall through the cracks. McFadden kind of has that it factor for me in the attack. He makes things happen. He just makes things happen. He does remind me, and they're both Notre Dame guys, he reminds me of John Gallagher in some ways. So he's a hard worker that will try to get everything out of his ability that he can. And you want those guys, like the college guys that you bring in, you need that. You need that engine. You need that work rate. You need them to push the talented kids that you have coming up. You need them to make every training session honest and intense. I think McFadden is somebody who could be a big surprise, and I want to see what he can turn into. A pretty creative guy, too, for in the final third. So I want to see McFadden and what he can do fitting into this group. I want to see Bauer. And if he can make that jump to the MLS level, he was looked at as a player who had professional ability in college. He was at New Hampshire, a smaller school that did really well, but still a smaller school. So can he make the jump in quality? Obviously did enough in preseason to earn a first-team deal, but I think we'll see him a decent bit with the twos. I'm really curious to see what academy players get the opportunity this year and continue to get the opportunity. That's the biggest thing, is getting the door opened for you once is good, but who keeps getting that door opened because the performances are good enough? Ricky, I don't know. That's what's so hard about it right now is, being a step removed from everything because of COVID, because of protocols. Like, I don't know who's mixed in with the twos right now. I don't know, outside of the little bit of academy stuff we've seen where they've played Charlotte. I don't know who's ready for that jump. I do know there's some new faces in the academy, some guys who have come from outside the area who my guess were attracted by the idea of playing in USL Championship for Atlanta United too. So we'll have to see how they fit. But I think we'll start to get a sense of it in the first few weeks of the season. But yeah, we're going to learn a lot quickly about the twos because we don't know very much right now.
Yeah, and for me, I want to see who jumps in from the academy standpoint, who continues the momentum that was built from last year, who are the new folks that get to hop in and have those opportunities. And, So for me, I'm looking forward to it, and I will be as guilty as charged. I will have the second screen going. I don't know if it's going to be large device or small, but I'll definitely have the second screen going, watching the twos while watching the first team at MBS on the weekend.
All right, final questions. Anything else on Twitter we need to hit?
We are caught up, sir.
We are caught up on Twitter. So Twitch Pitch, it's on you. Final questions. Matt Wagner, are we back to 18 for game day rosters officially? I don't think so, but I also don't think MLS has really said, which they probably should.
Yeah.
I don't think they officially said anything about the 5 subs either, to be perfectly honest. Which is not good. Let's double check. I mean, it's absolutely possible that we've missed it, and it just, or they released it, but it wasn't like a big release. So Philadelphia, for example, as I pull them up, they had 9 guys on the bench, so that would take you to 20. I think maybe it's 20, not 23, but not 18. And you can have less, and I think Atlanta had 18, as Matt says, which can absolutely be a coach's decision. Could be just an availability situation. But, yeah, I see 9 for Philadelphia, if I can add right. Real, Freeze, Santos, Finley, Sullivan, Hariel, and McGlynn, Collin, and Aronson. That is 9. Thank you, John, for holding your fingers up.
Just double checking it.
Thank you. That's really useful. Let me check another.
Write it down.
Let me check another game really fast to see if anybody had more than 9. This is where we're at. No, I think it's 20. Because the Galaxy had on the bench Zubac, Harvey, Gonzalez, Perez, Acosta, Dunbar, Klestjan, Klinsmann, Alvarez. So, yeah, I think it's 20. That's it. And if you have less, you have less. There's probably a minimum that would be like 15, maybe, would be my guess. USL, I don't know if it's the same or not. I'm not 100% sure. Matt, we're figuring it out just like everybody else. So, because I don't think they announced anything. I think we heard about the 5 subs from, I want to say it was Caleb Porter. It could have been Jim Curtin talking about using all their subs because they were going to come into the opening week a little banged up, a little tired, and they'd have to use all 5. Because that wasn't officially announced right before the season either. It will be a season-long thing. They won't change in mid-season. No, that in the past they've always done, like when they have something like this, like the concussion rule as well, it's a season-long deal. The only time they did the weird like mid-season change was when VAR was instituted. And I think MLS rushed it. I think they should have waited until that season was completed and did it in 18 rather than throwing it in at the end of 17. That was not a good idea. They should not do that sort of thing again.
Absolutely, right there with you. I agree.
Thanks, John.
What we're here for.
That's why you're the best in the business.
Right, you are, Big Dill.
Jeez.
I feel like it's like when I agree with you, and it's like I feel like the analyst, the color guy on Major League.
That's exactly what I was referencing. That's it.
Only I don't go drinking out of paper bags in moments of heavy anxiety.
Yeah, don't do that. Didn't we have a question earlier about Graham Potter potentially to Spurs?
Yeah, we did. We answered it.
He suffered a facial injury after falling into a railing on the beach. He lost his footing on steps walking home. He said, I would love to be able to tell you there's a heroic story, but he's got a nice, I don't even know if that qualifies as a shiner. Heavy bruising under his left eye and a significant gash on his left cheek. I would love to be able to tell you there's a heroic, chivalrous story here that I can make myself look really good, but unfortunately I just missed my footing walking home on some steps and then went crashing into a metal railing. And I've got a bit of whiplash on my back. Thankfully it's only hit my cheek. It could have been worse.
Wow.
Whew. Yeah, that's a bad look, Graham. If he's going to go to Tottenham, he's going to have to be more careful with his footing.
Yes.
That's absolutely a big part of it. Just kidding.
Okay. Wow, that is a good guess.
Yeah, that's a significant one right there.
I mean, that's like in some, in some hockey games where the guy takes the stick and they try to do the sweep move with the blade when they're mad at you. It's one of those. Wow.
It's not good. It's not good at all. One more on the Super League that was not super. Alexander Ceferin, according to Spanish media, is being paraphrased as saying that there's only a very small chance that the Real Madrid-Chelsea semifinal will not be played. He said this is mainly because the season has already started. The TV would claim damages from us if we cancel the game. Back to the cutting the nose off to spite your face. Don't be stupid. X-Pen, sadly, we are about to go. It's been 2 hours and 55 minutes for us. We've talked USL, we've talked MLS, we've talked Super League, we've talked assorted nonsense. Graham Potter needs to be more careful walking home from the beach.
Yes.
And we'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. So 9 a.m. on the East Coast, Atlanta time. I guess that's 2 o'clock UK time. That's 6 o'clock West Coast time. We worldwide, baby. And we'll talk all the nonsense that we do on a Friday. Friday will be a very heavy MLS-centric show. We will have Mike Conti rejoining us at 10 o'clock to talk Atlanta and Chicago. 9:30, we will have the return of Kevin Egan.
Oh,
he will be joining us at 9:30. He is on the call. John is like giddy. Good grief. Are you going to ask for his autograph?
Gotta talk to Kevin Patrick about
No, John. This is a soccer interview. We are talking to Kevin Egan. We are not talking to Kevin Patrick.
Oh, man.
This is not a WWE interview, John.
Oh.
No. It's soccer down here. And you're not going to ask him what's in his black book either.
Yo, Kevin, what's in your black book?
No, we will touch on his work with the WWE. We will touch on it. One question. That's it. And he's not going to give you anything away.
Parts for Mr. Thornton Mellon.
No, he's not going to give you a bunch of stuff. Just love to hear his thoughts on his new gig, and that's it. That's it. Okay?
Love to hear.
No, I'm going to ask you. You're not allowed.
Oh,
you're banned.
Man.
You're just like you're banned from the Food and Drink channel on the Discord. You're banned from asking Kevin about WWE.
Love to hear.
No, you're banned. Tonight, before all of that, we will be at Pontoon Brewing, Sandy Springs, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Again, a lot of MLS talk as we get ready. A lot of Atlanta United fans will be in the house for that. We'll recap anything else we haven't touched on from the Orlando match. We'll look ahead to Chicago. We'll talk about some of the performers around the league to keep an eye on. We'll talk Philadelphia as well with CONCACAF Champions League popping up next Tuesday. Busy night tonight, Pontoon Brewing. If you can come join us, show starts at 6. Show up at 5. Take advantage of their awesome specials that they have specifically for us this evening. Also, you can watch on Twitch. Same place, same bat channel, twitch.tv/soccer down here. Thanks for hanging out today. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the conversation. Thanks for all the new viewers. Thanks for all the old viewers. Thanks for the subscribers, the followers, all of that. Tell your friends. We're here to talk and argue and do all the things in the morning that we love about this game. And, yeah, hopefully not as much about the Super League anymore. We'll be back tomorrow. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.